Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Celebration on the court for the Gales, 2010, 2012, 2019, and 2024 in this era of this rivalry. The fourth time that St. Mary's has taken down the Zags in this championship game. Their fifth all-time WCC tournament championship. Their 26th win of the year. And this one was hard-earned.
Rebound grab, 2-1 from half court. No good! Charleston, tonight, the nation's capital is our city. TV stands for Dancing Cougars. Charleston, you're going to the big dance.
4 seconds left. 2, 1. Golden Grizzlies fans, get out your dancing shoes and give me a couple steps. For the fourth time in 20 seasons, Oakland University is going to the NCAA tournament.
The inbound to Bretchley, quickly into the forecourt. Top of the key, 3 on the way is no good. Get out your yellow and blue dancing shoes, Jackrabbit Nation. South Dakota State is headed to the NCAA tournament for the 7th time.
You know, we had a good showing in Michigan. I was really pleased with our fan base. You know, you hear the Go Big Red, going on the road. You know, that's huge for a lot of times to say, hey, the 15 guys on the bench, that's all we got. You know, when you have a group there pulling for you, that makes a big difference. So, you know, like I said, I'm hoping we have a good following up in Minneapolis. But, yeah, those, I guess, Big 12 tournaments that we coached in, that, you know, we were fortunate enough to win. Our fans at Iowa State played a huge part in that.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube.
You are looking live.
You might be if you're on one of those fine platforms, or if I remembered to log into the stream, that might work also.
Are you not streaming?
You know, that's my bad. We're getting
islands in the stream. That is what we are.
We can't sing for too long. We're gonna get fined.
That's the only reason I'm here. Shoot.
I'll be serious when I don't get fined.
Well, is Iowa State fans travel to Omaha? Omaha, right here,
somewhere in Middle America.
That's a strange reference, but I get it.
County Crows?
No, because when he first coached Hoiberg in the Open, when he said, "Hey, you know, my team's in the Big 12," I was like, "Wait, ooh, don't blow it." Oh no, he's referencing Iowa State. It's all good.
I mean, okay, let's start with Hoiberg here, because
are you upset with?
No, I'm not. I'm really not. But Travis pops in the comments at 7:02 in the morning. It's
a
little early to be mad.
Travis S.
Travis R.
Okay.
He says the mayor got robbed.
Oh,
I don't think the mayor got robbed. The mayor got coach of the year. I don't know what's the problem.
I won't. Robbed is a little harsh.
It's a little aggressive.
But nobody's going to say co-coach of the year. They'll just say coach of the year.
Yeah, so who cares? I think Ryan Kalkbrenner's first defensive player of the year was a co-defensive player of the year. I think. It was either him or Kyrie's first one. I don't remember which. But that's kind of the point. I don't remember which one. You know why? Because they're just the defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
Like, nobody cares a year later. You were the coach of the year or you were the defensive player of the year.
I was just glad it was not Collins.
Yeah. No, I mean, Collins didn't deserve it. Painter, you can make the argument for Painter.
For sure. I'm not mad. Like, I'm not mad about Painter.
They had an incredible year.
Also, they did kind of I wouldn't say rebuilt on the fly, but they got better at some key spots and made a heck of a run. They got a lot of quad one wins.
Yeah, it's not like it was a soft schedule for Purdue. They did a really good job. And I mean, listen, there's a ton of really good coaches when we look back at their careers. And I don't know if Matt Painter's in that category. But
he's a good coach.
No, he is. But I mean, we look back and we're like, well, how did Coach K only get Coach of the Year X number of times? Or how has Greg Popovich never won NBA Coach of the Year? But then we get mad in the moment where it's like, yeah, they were supposed to be good. Like, it can't be both things. You can't both be mad that Tom Osborne didn't win more National Coach of the Years and also be like, and also be like, well, they were supposed to be good.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't super put off by Co.
I wasn't either, because nobody's going to say Co in 3 days. It's going to be Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
I'm just glad we didn't have lazy voting.
We didn't. We did a good job.
Can't wait to talk to Bruncy.
We did it. Whoa, Dr. Brunsey tomorrow.
Yeah.
We did it. They did a good job. They said, hey, listen.
Huskers fresh off a steamroll in Wichita.
Got it. And Creighton got a win over Omaha yesterday in baseball. 8-7, barn burner.
So Omaha just must seem to buck up against in-state deals.
Yeah.
I worry about Coach Porter's pitching depth.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
And
we'll see what the summit brings.
I love Coach Porter.
Yeah, he's a G. He's a Millard North guy.
Yeah, we were same class. Like, we knew each other.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. No, I like Evan a lot.
Yeah, he's a good man.
He's a good dude. So yeah, I mean, listen, you got some baseball going on here. We had obviously we got Fred Hoiberg, Coach of the Year. I'm just glad
how many will Nebraska get, do you think? I've been asking for a week. 4,000?
Oh, for the tournament?
Yeah. 3,000?
3 seems light.
Does 4 seem aggressive?
No, it seems about right. I don't know. When you said it at first blush, I was like,
last week?
Yeah, I was like, is that a little low? And then I said 5 to myself. I was like, no, that's high. So 4 must be about right.
I hope so.
I do too. I think they will. This is exciting.
Because 4,000 at Targetto would be pretty legit.
Yeah, this is it's an exciting Nebraska team. It's
exciting.
I think you'll get, and it helps that it's a Friday.
Are you messing with me?
No.
What you called him exciting?
It is exciting. It's exciting.
The team?
Exciting.
The team?
The situation they're in.
Oh, okay.
Nebraska hasn't found themselves.
Because I don't think you don't love their pieces, right?
No, I think they're better than the sum of their parts. I don't look at that team, and this is probably the best case for Hoiberg as Coach of the Year.
Yeah,
is I don't look at that team and I'm not enamored with many of their pieces.
Would you like some salt water?
No, I'm okay. I got a monster here.
I use sea salt too.
Yeah,
it's no longer sitting on the ice; it's in the water.
It's Himalayan.
Yeah, a little much, a little heavy-handed.
That's my
turn on a whole lot of lights though.
Area of the country is the Himalayas over there. It's where we kind of chill. No, I think that's part of the argument for Hoiberg as Coach of the Year though. Is I'm not enamored with any of the pieces. Really, I think there's some nice pieces that could be pretty solid on other good teams, but I think they've gotten way more out of that roster than they really had any right to, especially losing Sam Grizzell and Derek Walker as the 2 best players from that team last year. And then coming back, finding a rink master who can do some of the things that Derek Walker did. But
situational.
Yeah, situationally can be useful. Turning Keisei into a more useful player, but still being able to ride out the highs and lows of the Keisei Tominaga experience. And like rebuilding more on the fly than I think people give them credit for. Like that, I was genuinely concerned about them losing Walker and Grizzell last year and people expecting them to be better this year. I didn't see that coming. I mean, I really didn't see that progression at all, but Hoiberg did an incredible job with it.
With my man Griesel.
Because
I know why, because you're thinking Sam Cassell.
Yep, I am. I've got the
Sam Cassell, Mike Gazelle.
It's Mike Gazelle. That's what it is. That's the one in my head.
So I talked about him a lot yesterday.
Yeah.
Just on a humbug.
Yeah.
Just on a humbug.
Why?
I thought I was looking for some data, like historical context, and Gazelle popped in my head. So then I had to I confirmed with one of my high school crack statisticians, and it wasn't Mike. It was another guy. But anyway, by the way, Travis is having none of it this morning.
Not having any of it?
No, I think, and I'm going to ride with Travis this morning. He's a fan, and he's telling you he's a fan, and he reserves the right.
That's fine.
To be upset over as part of the fan base, because I feel like Travis is saying without saying, and I may be putting words in Travis's mouth. He's waited a long time for a Nebraska team to be formidable, and he wants his coach recognized.
He wants the credit. I get it.
Yeah, and if that's the business that Travis is standing on, Travis, I'm rolling with you.
I can live with that.
How you like them apples?
That's fine. But
was I just the spokesperson for Travis?
I think so. Yeah.
But I bet that's what if he could pull my strings, I bet that's what he would say.
No, probably. Because I've especially when Creighton was first coming into the Big East and they didn't get the same respect from the Big East media and writers and stuff like that. I felt the same way where
the barrel chest got a little more barrel-y.
Yeah, where you kind of puff up a little barrel-y. I don't think so. But you kind of puff up a little bit. You're like, hey man, we're better than that.
It's a stickler.
That's why I'm
just because you started out with Grissel.
Man, that's my bad.
Like the little thing you cut out of meat that's a little chewy.
No, that's gristle. No, I totally have the yips with the Mike Gazelle and Sam Griesel. Like it's in my head, I can't distinguish between them at all.
So if you get, because I remember I've told this story once or twice.
Travis says you nailed it. By the way, that's exactly it.
Oh, thank you. See, I knew. See, I'm vibing with
you know
Travis.
The thing of truth.
So but I could see it though.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I try to. If I, when I want to arrive at a solution, I always got to think about, okay, they may think this, they may be thinking this.
You're trying to see it from the angles, right?
And then I'm going to come in with step on the gas.
You sound like you're like putting together like a boxing game plan. Like I'm gonna go jab.
Yeah. So
and then I'm gonna go right.
It's a very. I wish I wouldn't have started so late, but I already have a little bit of brain damage. I don't want excess.
Probably don't anymore.
But man, is it competitive. Boxing. Yeah, and just the skill set, But anyway, so if they get 4,500 at Target, it's like that's pretty legit, right? Because
for sure.
Nebraska fans love to travel, and I know groceries are high and inflation sucked and interest rates are brutal. But if you've saved up any bowl game money, or your kids are like, getting scholarships, man, go spend it. Go put about $87. Total in the tank, because I assume you got a little bit. You're gonna put 55 in there to fill up, and about another 35 to get back.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's 90. I need Jamie to help me count. Get your little ticket and go watch Nebraska, man. They could be playing on Sunday. There's plenty of good places to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm no disrespect to Minnesota. I like Eden Prairie.
Mm-hmm.
Egan is beautiful, but if you notice, I'm out there in the suburbs. Downtown Minnesota, it's a little sketch. Andy Kendeigh and I we met at Hell's Kitchen with Josh White, his trusty, actually probably Josh should probably be his boss, but we met at a restaurant, and a guy was urinating in broad daylight.
Yeah.
On the side of the restaurant. So I was like, wow, yeah, it's a little early for that, but who am I?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
And then the next morning, Greg Sharp, myself, and Benny Mack walked to go get breakfast at Keys, and it was very interesting. So downtown,
a little dicey.
Sure,
a little touch and go sometimes.
Like a lot of downtowns.
Yeah, I think so.
But I was saying, like, I remember coming out of the tunnel in Miami in '94 and hearing the crowd the first time we poked our little beady eyes from under that tunnel, and it was like, holy smokes, man, this is not really a road game.
It didn't feel like a road game anymore.
No, so I'm
and that changes the dynamic.
Oh, yeah. I remember ask Doom. I mean, because I was holding his hand. He was like, and he's the one that got the crowd even loud. Like he was like, I felt him he squeezed, and so I understand full well what he's saying.
Yeah.
But I asked the question. It made me ask the question because he referenced Iowa State and traveling well. I'm like, shoot, man. They'll be invading Omaha next week.
Throwing the gauntlet down a little bit.
Is the sports bar too far for them to come and eat?
No, I don't think so.
Man, Shane, those tater tots. I could tell all the Cyclone fans about tater tots.
Absolutely.
Think they'll drive out here and get their tater tot game right?
Being right.
You got to get your tater tot game
how
right.
That field got kind of poopy in a hurry.
Which one?
To come to Omaha.
Oh yeah. Well, because you're probably not getting Kansas now.
You could
still, but if they play the way I imagine they will without their two best players.
Yeah, are they favored in that?
No, they're not. I think they're a short dog to Cincy.
How do you know?
Because I look at things sometimes.
I looked. Not that I don't believe you, but I'm gonna look.
Sometimes I try and do a little prep.
I dream. Yeah, prep is good.
Every once in a while.
Shout out Coach Lukey.
Not that prep. The other prep. Prep.
Different prep.
No. So
yeah, they are a short dog.
TK.
I feel like
somebody just said that.
I was gonna have a Too Short reference, but I'm not because you probably are too young to have listened to Too Short in the 80s and 90s.
I know who Too Short is. I couldn't tell you I couldn't.
Life is to some people unbearable, committing suicide, and that's terrible. Not much too much.
I got nothing. I got nothing for you.
All right.
TK
Life is too short.
TK asked me if I'm okay with Casey on the second team or if that's giving him too much credit.
It's giving him too much credit.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm still mad at TK for his Russell Wilson slander yesterday.
Listen,
What was wrong with you guys?
I didn't say anything.
Boy, you're the dude that. No, stop.
What?
Stop.
He asked. Let me say.
You,
Hold on.
you
Hold on,
remind me of my kid. I didn't do anything. You're
Hold
the dude that fills up the gas cans and sets them out at the corner of the garage, knowing good and well there's an arsonist next door, and you're like, I didn't do anything. What?
Listen, I can't be held responsible for other people's bad behavior.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Let me set the context here. So TK asks us on Twitter if we prefer the Steelers situation, quarterback room, or the Cleveland Browns quarterback room. And I said, I'll take Russell Wilson over Jameis Winston because I assume Watson's not going to be playing for some reason or another. Which, if you look at like the last 3 years of football, that's a fair assumption. So I was like, I'll take.
Coming off an injury, shoulder surgery.
Yep, and doesn't seem like he likes playing football that much anymore. Got that bag and was like, I'm cool now.
This dude loves hating on guys from Florida.
I didn't even know that's where Deshaun Watson was from.
Stop it.
And so I go, I'll take Russell Wilson over Jameis.
Yeah. Are the elderly fans down in Florida different than the elderly fans here?
Hey, we need to hit Nebraska ball mic up.
He's a Florida State guy, by the way. So,
shame on you.
I put my biases aside and I go, I think I take Russ over Jameis. And then TK comes in and says, I want the guy that'll push the ball down the field. And I was like, there's just no telling where he's going to push it to, which I think is for Jameis, which is a fair criticism.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll take Russell. And then all that was said, this is where you got mad. All that was said was that either way, you're going to want them to hand the ball off more than they throw it.
Yeah, and then
which I think is fair.
Somehow, then he came back and doubled down with well, what does he do different than? Listen, man, that's not. I get the extreme example, but that's not what's going to be the separating himself from the other 30 quarterbacks is not in its entirety or the context gonna be what gets the Steelers over the hump this year.
Yeah, because the context was Browns or Steelers.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to be better than the other 31 quarterbacks in the league.
No, because the situation is better than a lot of the other 31.
But I didn't want to get on.
But that's why I said it's
X marks the spot, and because I like
that's why I said that. That's why I said that it's better if either of those guys is handing off more than they're throwing it, because situationally you don't want to put a ton on Russell Wilson, do you?
Listen.
I'm just asking, do you want to put a ton on Russell Wilson?
If 2 minutes to go and Russell's got to drive the Steelers down, I'm not nervous.
That's a different situation.
No, it's not.
No, because there's a difference between you want to put too much on him, which I'm talking about.
What's your imaginary drawing line? You're just going to toe the edge?
You don't want him throwing the ball 40 times a game.
That's nobody in Steelers history. No, that's not true, but that's not how they play anyway. So I don't have to worry about that.
But that's what I'm saying.
No, I don't have to. See, this is the problem with people.
No, that's what I'm saying.
This is the problem with people.
All right, tell me what's my problem.
You invent things that haven't happened, nor are likely to happen, to work ourselves up in a frenzy. We say things like, well, what if such and such is only shooting, 10% from three, man? Like, how are they going to score? Let's worry about that when it happens. It's not going to paralyze me in the meantime, right? Well, what if it rains next Tuesday? Well, I can for certainly have a game plan, but I'm not going to be consumed by it. Oh, the doctor says I don't have any cavities, but let's say the dentist said I have a cavity.
You got to clean those up, DB.
And then he oh my gosh, what if all my teeth are falling out? Like, I don't think like that. That's not in my wheelhouse, right? I don't, so why do you give me those wild scenarios? There's 4 teams in America that would be comfortable throwing the ball 40 times a game.
Okay, let me bring you a real number here, okay? Because this is a real number from Russell Wilson.
What happened to K-Say in second team?
I don't know. You got a little.
No. I did. Don't.
You did because I brought up TK and then
Tim Miles.
You got to be continually
No, that's Mike Tomlin.
pressing.
I brought up TK, and then you got mad that he was slandering
No,
Russell Wilson.
Don't put that
that's
crap
exactly
on me.
what
Don't
happened.
put that on me.
No, that's exactly what happened.
Don't put that on
Let me give you some real numbers on Russell Wilson here, okay?
How in that?
He has multiple times in his career, so 40 was high, multiple times in his career, throwing the ball about 35 times a game. Are you comfortable if that's the number?
Well,
A
yeah,
leader.
the Steelers will throw the ball in the low 30s.
And you're comfortable with that with Russell Wilson?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So we disagree there. I would prefer it to not be that high.
Yeah, but the devil's in the details. Like, you get bogged down with, like, the minutia isn't. So what's the difference, in your opinion, between 31 and 35 in an NFL game for a quarterback? I understand the number, but what happens if it's the end of a half and they're on the 30-yard line and they're going to throw the ball 4 more times than they normally would? That scenario doesn't present itself the next game.
That's
like,
why
context matters.
That's why I took a few season-long numbers, so I'm not taking it. The larger the sample set is, the more of that evens itself out. That's all I'm doing. That's why I'm taking a whole season instead of, well, he threw 40 times this game, and he threw 40 times this game, and he threw 38 times this game. I'm taking multiple seasons to even out the sample size.
I'm not like in an uproar. I'm not one of those people that thinks Russell is going to be as bad in Pittsburgh as.
I don't think he was bad last year. He was fine last year, but he also didn't throw the ball as much last year.
Yeah.
If that's the same version of Russ that you get, that's what I'm talking about in terms of him being fine. Like, he can be fine for Pittsburgh playing the way he played last year.
Yeah, I don't expect him to be like Roethlisberger under Todd Haley.
No, and I don't expect him to be like Russ. I don't want him to try and be like Russell Wilson earlier in his career. That's more my point. I don't want him to try and use
like pre-Marshawn,
or end of Marshawn, when you kind of had that whole division with Seattle where Russ wanted to be the guy and he wanted to put up Brady and Breeze numbers.
Shane, would you let Russ cook?
No.
Me neither.
That's my point, though. That's all I'm saying.
No.
That is all I'm saying. I don't want to let Russ cook.
You are not afforded the luxury to
move
the goalpost and then say, that's all I'm saying. That's not what you originally said, because it wouldn't have elicited the response that it got.
Is it possible it's a you problem?
No, not this time. Like, about 86.12% of the time. 1-2, I didn't round up.
I think the Raiders.
It's a me problem.
Yeah.
The Raiders have had a good free agency.
The Raiders need I'm glad they didn't get Russell, because I think they need, if anything, if they were going to get a quarterback, I think they would need a young quarterback, because they haven't gone young quarterback for quite a while.
Got the young secondary coming. You got Wilkins
was a good
Crosby.
pickup.
That defense should be pretty salty.
We're gonna be all right.
All of a sudden, the AFC West is kind of physical.
Yeah. They can get after it a little bit.
So I told my man, I told Husker X's and O's, I said, be careful about wanting the Chiefs to get back to outscoring people. That division is changing.
I can understand wanting to upgrade some of the pieces we saw last year. But
you can doubt the Chiefs.
You're not going to want to do it at the cost of what the defense became last year.
No, it's going to get gutted a little.
Yeah,
probably.
It is. Because we talked to Cynthia yesterday. She thinks they're trading Snead, even though they tagged him, or maybe because they tagged him, whatever.
Yeah.
That's going to be, that's a tough one for them. I know they got Christian Jones back, so that's a big one. But I don't know. It's going to be tough to replicate what they did on defense last year.
Is this 25 minutes? Is this kind of going to be how it goes in the stream and with you and on social media?
I mean,
I want to. I vouched for Travis. That wasn't good enough. Now am I going to have to slap some kids down today?
If you keep blaspheming what I'm saying, then yeah, it might be like this today.
What's the matter with your hurry?
We'll come back and set up the show and get more of DB yelling at me here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. DB starting fights this morning already.
Dude, the projection is crazy.
I'm an innocent bystander here, just
right.
I'm just trying to get through a lineup here, and you know,
no, it started with me having to come to the defense of Travis because you were going to jump down his throat, and I was like,
no, I wasn't. About Casey?
I said, I think the co.
Oh,
I said, I think what Travis is trying to say is, and I got you off the ledge because I mean you were already on the ring apron. about to step
Travis
through.
can feel however he wants to feel. I think it's silly to be upset about the co.
Yeah.
Matt Painter had a good year. So did Fred Hoiberg.
Well, my man Evan says, Ravi, take a listen.
I'll do my best.
Purdue picked to finish first in the Big Ten and finished first. Nebraska was picked to finish 12th and finished third. If that's not enough to decide Hoiberg as the sole winner of the Big Ten Coach of the Year, then you go to the Nebraska versus Purdue head-to-head. And then he gives me the eyeball emojis.
It just depends on what you want the award to be. Is it
people love the long shots?
Like acquiring players is part of coaching.
Sure.
Purdue has better players. He doesn't get credit for that?
That's weird that you'd use that as part of the criteria.
I mean, when people are evaluating coaches, I don't know if it should be part of the criteria for Coach of the Year, but when I'm evaluating coaches,
typically the better players you have, the more it gets held against you. I'm just surprised you'd use that as your.
I get that it gets held against them, and I don't really know why. Is my point.
Okay.
That's why I said it depends on what you want the award to be. If you want the award to be most outperformed expectation, there's no question that Fred Hoiberg should be the Coach of the Year, right? Like,
yeah, I'm with you because I don't really agree with that either.
But there's a lot of times, and I brought this up in the open, where a really good coach has a really good team and they perform exactly at their expectations, which is a challenge in and of itself. It's a different challenge.
I think it's difficult. Because I said all year, Coach Samanji didn't get near enough credit for what happened behind the scenes with us. He's a fantastic coach. Sometimes people just say, hey, roll the ball out there and play. Nah.
Also, look at Purdue's roster and tell me how many NBA guys are on that roster.
Oh, would you stop?
No, listen, if we're talking about...
That is irrelevant. Stop doing that.
Why?
Because it hasn't really... I heard this with Gonzaga. I heard this with North Carolina. Like when you're talking about how many pros, you were getting ready to make the argument that he's getting good players. How good is not good enough, but too good to be pros?
He's getting good college players.
Okay, so it's about
good
college basketball.
He's getting better players than Nebraska.
Irrelevant to the NBA.
It's not irrelevant to the NBA.
It is.
No, here's why. I've gone back and looked. Every national champion back to the expansion of the tournament back in 1985.
Sure, but he can have a guy like Ivy and not get there. So, okay, what's next?
All right.
What's next?
I mean, do you want me to let me finish my point?
Yeah, but I want to I feel the goalpost starting to get a little shift. Let's get back to validating him as part of Coach of the Year.
It's a different challenge, but it is still a challenge to have high expectations and to consistently meet those expectations.
I don't have any qualms.
There's a lot of there's a lot of coaches with really good players that don't perform up to their standard. Look at John Calipari every year, most years, right?
Oh, got a lot of NBA guys though.
Does have a lot of NBA guys.
I'm just saying
if you're going to be the top team in the country every year, except for I think like two back to 1985, you have
a lot of NBA guys.
You have at least two NBA guys.
I'm just saying. Well, what does that got to do with the price of tea in China?
It has to do with the fact that Purdue's been the number one team in the country all year. I don't know if they're going to win a national championship or not, but to be in that category of
Drew Timme was POY and he's not a pro.
Yeah,
like
I understand that.
So I mean, I get it, but I don't. Like, just like all things being equal. And listen, I don't care about the co. I don't. Hear my heart. I said that in the first segment. Like the co is fine. But if I was going to argue against that, what I think, here I go, I'm trying to assume what people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
What I think Evan is saying is all things being equal, which co says,
mm-hmm.
Look at how far Coach Hoiberg came versus the expectations. And if it's a tie, that's the deciding factor. That's what I think he's saying. It's not to discount what you're saying, because I there's some merit there.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some coaches in a multitude of sports around here that people will assume because they have good players, they will win, and they'll figure out it's more than just having good players. So I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's saying it's kind of how I look at championships. Championships is way down on the rung of determining factors when I'm trying to pick a couple of things.
Sure.
I believe that's what Evan's trying to say. He's like, Ravi, if we have a tie, this is an easy separator. You might be saying,
mm-hmm.
Evan, the bulk of the work that he's done, repeating and meeting expectations, is not getting near enough value for you. So there you guys would be going back and forth.
It is getting value because he was named co-coach of the year. I think Nebraska fans who are mad about the are discounting the job that Painter did.
They don't value it enough.
Obviously the voters did because they gave him co-coach of the year.
Because they're not lazy.
But they also value
high five that we've encouraged non-lazy voting.
They also value what Fred Hoiberg did. Yeah. I think this is a fine way for the award to go down because both coaches had a great year.
Yeah, I'm not really up in arms about it. I think I think he's cool. But I don't mind when fans, and it's not an unintelligent argument.
No,
either.
You can be mad about it. That's fine. I don't get it personally.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be mad about it personally. Like if Baylor Shireman today gets named co-player of the year, I'm not going to be mad about that. I think it will be deserved that he gets acknowledged for what he did. But Devin Carter's had an incredible year. Tyler Kolek's had an incredible year.
So
there's if he shares that with somebody, I'm not mad about that.
Let me go back to something and go to the Big East here just for a second, unless you want to get to KSA being second team.
No,
I think that's fine. KSA being second team.
I don't have a problem with it.
I got no problem.
I think there's a volatility with KSA because of the way he plays that personally I prefer
Are you sure you don't want some salt water?
I'm good. I prefer a more steady hand.
Why you didn't offer me any breakfast?
I mean, because you're not eating carbs right now. And I can tell you're cranky.
I'm the only funny guy on this show, and I get painted with cranky. Life is tough.
I think a lot of people think I'm funny.
Life is good. You know what I mean?
No, I don't have a problem with it. I think there's a volatility with Casey, but I also understand how important he is to Nebraska and how, again, it depends on what your criteria are for these teams. He's been really valuable to Nebraska. Mm-hmm. He's been I don't think like star power should matter when it comes to this, but
you think the lazy part, if we're going to use the term lazy, was leading scorer on a good team?
Yeah, I think they felt like I think they felt like they looked at Nebraska and they're like, okay, this is a team that is obviously getting a double bye. They probably need representation on one of the first two teams.
You know what's funny about this?
What's that?
Do you remember when I said why I was trying to make the case for Coach Hoiberg for Coach of the Year?
Because you didn't think anybody from Nebraska was the first two team guy.
Yep.
Yeah. You could. I mean, it pretty easily could have been a third team for Casey.
I said he may not have it. He won't have any guys on the first two teams.
I think Rink is third. Yeah, Rink is third team as well. That might seem a little high the way he finished the season, but he's valuable to what they do, so I don't have a huge problem with it. And they probably wanted representation from a top four team.
Yeah, that stuff is interesting because we want it to be about the totality of the work,
mm-hmm.
but we when we want to pick at it, we'll pick these spots to it's not validate, but
invalidate
to vindicate or invalidate to have to make the case against, right?
Okay.
Well, there was that stretch,
yeah.
But it is the body of work because a lot of guys.
I think what my point was more like, okay, through January, I probably would have looked at Rink and thought, yeah, he definitely deserves a place on one of those second or third teams. By the end of the year, and it's not a non-significant portion of the season.
Which part?
The last, month and a half or so.
Yeah.
I don't think that Rink was playing at that same level. So if he got knocked for that, I wouldn't have had a problem. But I do think it's important that Nebraska was recognized on some of those teams, and they got a couple guys with Casey and Rink. I don't have a problem just because I wouldn't personally love having Casey as one of my best players because of the volatility. That doesn't mean that he wasn't good and important for Nebraska. So I don't really have a problem with it.
Real quick, if you're going by the totality of the work and maintaining good players,
mm-hmm.
is Hurley your coach of the year in the Big East?
I mean, you can make the argument for sure. I personally hate Dan Hurley, so I'm gonna have a hard time. But if you can make the same argument,
there are some very similar.
Honestly, I think Hurley probably did a better job than Painter because of what he was replacing. Like Hurley had to replace real pieces, Hawkins, Sonogo, Jackson. Like those were huge pieces for his national title team, and they came back. And honestly, in the regular season, they were better. So if you want to make him coach of the year, I really can't argue that. We got more Hurrdat Sports coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. DB still hasn't let me get through the lineup yet today, so I'm going to do it right now. Just don't say anything. I know you're laughing. Just don't say anything yet. Brian Christopherson coming up at 8 o'clock. He's from Husker 24/7. Shane, just like turn his mic off until I'm done with the lineup. 8:30, Andy Kendeigh from KETV. 9 o'clock, Jacob Padilla from Hurrdat Sports. And at 9:30, we're going to talk to Brooke Nunviller from Omaha Supernovas. We're also going to give away tickets at the end of the show. That's your lineup today. All right, DB, go.
What
are you laughing about?
You know, some things just catch you off guard.
Yeah.
I was just perusing social media.
Sure, as one does.
And Johnny's been getting loose lately.
Yeah.
This is funny. Matt Painter. Hey, look. All I'm saying is Bo Jackson was a special talent.
Not denying his talent. That's fine.
Oh, shoot. That was pretty funny. Well played. That's just timing. Isn't that what comedic skills really are?
I think a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, you seem a little...
I'm fine.
You good?
Yeah.
Ooh, all right. I'm better.
You good? You going to make it? You going to make it through the day?
I'm going to make it.
You want to talk about Drake May or Nick Saban?
I'm a little taken aback at Nick Saban.
Yeah, he's been gone for like a month and a half, 2 months, and he's already the old man yelling at the clouds.
Well,
he was being dramatic yesterday.
So 100%, but this is kind of what I don't like. Say like out. You got to be able. So this, gosh, I can't even get this out. I'm so flustered. If you were gonna reap the benefits real time, say, hey, look, I know I played the game, but I hated every minute of it. I was a big recipient of it. I acquired a lot of good players, but I'm telling you, I just didn't feel like I wanted to keep up. Or something like that as your opening statement.
Yeah.
Then I'm probably listening.
That's fair.
But just to go all in on the state of affairs as if you didn't benefit from it.
Yeah. It feels a little disingenuous.
It came across as a little disingenuous.
It also came across super self-righteous.
Oh.
This is the quote, if you haven't heard it. So we're not just talking out of context.
Yeah, he talked.
He says, well, all the things that I believed in for all these years, 50 years of coaching, no longer exist in college football. So it always was about developing players. Apparently, you're not allowed to develop players anymore. I didn't get that memo. It was always about helping people when you're successful in life. I didn't realize you weren't allowed to help people in sports anymore either. That's a bummer. My wife even said to me, we have all the recruits over on Sunday. Sorry, ad popped up. Thanks on 3. We have all the recruits over on Sunday with their parents for breakfast. I didn't realize that had been made illegal also. That's a bummer. And she would always meet with the mothers and talk how she was going to help and impact their sons and how they would be well taken care of. Something I think you're still allowed to do. And she came to me like right before our retirement and said,
they do that in Lincoln.
Yeah, still today.
To this day?
I don't know if you know this, but it actually has not been outlawed.
Okay.
And she came to me like right before our retirement. That like is him, not me. Why are we doing this? And I said, what do you mean? She said, all they care about is how much you're going to pay them.
Recruit different players.
Yeah.
You're afforded that luxury.
You are allowed to recruit whoever you'd like.
Yeah.
Especially at Alabama.
If you don't feel like you have to play the mercenary game,
then don't.
Especially
at Alabama.
It's okay. And you know what? Nick could say, hey, listen, Greg, I'd love to stick around. You've been a fantastic AD. Hey, fan base. I know I've set the standard. I have been the creme of la creme of college football coaching, but I'm going to take a stand. I'm not going to play this to the highest bidder game. I'm going to try to continue to recruit the way that I recruit, but if it comes down to NIL deals and this, that, and the other, I'm out. I may take a few more L's going forward. Can I get that out there, guys? Is everybody cool? Hey, market, Tinchler Mercedes-Benz down there that gives us, $1.1 million. Are you still okay with that? Will you still support me if that's the moral ground that I stand on? Try that.
And then if it doesn't work, or if your AD says no, then maybe you retire.
Right.
But don't just say this is not the same anymore and peace out, and then start yelling at it from the outside.
It's like the ratty associates that wait until something goes bad to tell you what they knew.
Mm-hmm.
I
tried to tell you.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
No, you didn't, Nick. You really didn't.
Right? It's like I said, Shane, I've been like this since I can't stand that. Don't wait till it goes south to be like, oh man, like
X, Y, and Z was going on, and I wish I could have said something.
Right.
And
because you absolutely could have. So
he finishes,
just try it.
He finishes the quote with, it's whoever wants to pay the most money raised, the most money to buy the most players is going to have the best opportunity to win. And yes, they probably have they have a leg up. If you've got more money, if you've got a better collective, if you've got your ducks in a row in that part of it, that gives you an advantage. That does not mean, we just talked about, good players doesn't mean you always win, right? There's a lot of good players at a lot of good places, and they don't win very much. Nick Saban, you would think, greatest college coach of all time, or, certainly top couple, if you have an argument, he can't be the difference. He can't be the one. If he's all about developing players,
came across as odd.
It came across as super self-righteous and kind of out of touch a little bit, because he also, the thing that bothers me, I think, the most out of this is the fact that he apparently doesn't think that a player can get paid, a player can get paid and still care about what they're doing and still care about getting better and still want to be helped as a young man and still want to be mentored and coached and developed. Just because you're getting a paycheck, none of that matters anymore.
And I don't think that's being myopic. I think we can acknowledge there's a degree of you can understand what he feels.
Yes.
Right. So I'm not
saying it's made up.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is he went to the total extreme of, because guys can earn money now, then all of the things I did for 50 years are irrelevant. And that's not accurate, because we're seeing it at Nebraska.
He benefited from it. Now, maybe he reached a moral point, where the compass was just you know what?
It was a little bit too far off.
I'm tilted, right? That's cool. But I didn't hear any of that.
I also think, honestly, I think that if he was 20 years younger, he'd still be playing this game.
So I wanted to start with that thought process, because that's exactly what I thought. But the only reason I didn't say it is because I'm not sure.
I think
I'm not sure. I go back to some of the conversations that he had with Coach Osborne, and when they got thumped in East Lansing, and kind of what he was about. I think
if he was younger, he'd be more willing to adapt to what it is now.
Because what I will tell you is he's definitely not alone in that collegiate sentiment. And
I know there's a lot of coaches that don't love how things are going.
Listen, it's even at the high school ranks.
Sure.
Coaches just don't want to play the game.
Which is fine. They don't have to.
They just don't want to play the game. So the problem with that is, and it's different from high school to college, is the pool of candidates where the kids can continue to still grow and develop on and off the court, the field, the diamond, the whatever. You still want some of those people involved.
Yeah.
Because they're good for kids. So I'm a little worried, who's...
You're worried that the people that want to be involved in the money business are not good for the kids.
Some.
Or might not be.
Yeah. Oh.
Because anytime you introduce money, large amounts of money into the equation,
or what's in it for them,
there's some, they maybe they're trying to get a piece.
Because I've seen,
actors.
I used to think the kind of the grimy, and I get it. There are a lot of kids that needed and somebody with some means to help them, get to tournaments, kind of get their name out, be an advocate.
Yeah.
But then it turned into, well, this is my guy and he trains with me.
Yeah, get a little territorial.
Yeah. And it got and
if you didn't go through them, then they weren't going to help you out or help out the kid.
Listen, I know people that make kids pull down posts if they're not acknowledged on the tweet, right?
That's childish. Stop being like that if you're an adult.
Now the scary thing is now it's morphed into. I used to think it was just, I would always thumb my nose up at, oh, it's a basketball thing, man.
No, it's football now too.
It's definitely football now too. It is 100% football.
I have a really this is where it gets
so that scares me a little, right? Because I'm kind of riding with Nick there, right? Where it's not so much about NIL and whatever, but I'm like, and I don't. And where I would draw the line, I can't really tell, because I mean, who's to say that I should be the guy that decides whether you're good for kids or not? But I can tell when you're not.
Sure. Yeah, you get a vibe check, right?
Right. I can. So, because I would say, as long as you have kids, but genuinely want kids' best interests at heart, and you're on the back burner, it doesn't have to be about you.
So here's where
I don't care.
Here's where it gets hypocritical on Nick Saban's part for me. How much money was he making at Alabama?
Oh, yeah.
10 plus a year.
10.
Does that mean he cared about those kids any less? So why can't the kids have that same opportunity? That's where I start to have trouble, right? That's where I'm like, Nick, where are we going here? because you were getting paid really well, and you want us to believe you cared about kids, and I do believe that.
Yeah.
Kids can't care about you when they make a little scratch. Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7, coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. and we are joined by Brian Christopherson of Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on?
Oh, quite a bit, which is good. That's how we want it, right?
What do you got going on today? What's keeping you busy?
It's a mixture between hoops and kind of getting ready for spring ball at the press conference. I don't know if that's out there yet. Next week that we're going to kick that off more, I think. But with Husker basketball, I've kind of been in the deep end on that and enjoyed it.
Hey, so BC, we're on the heels of just talking about Coach Saban and whether it's sour grapes or the portal or NIL or whatever. And do with this what you will, but if he would have acknowledged, and maybe it landed well, but if he would have acknowledged maybe that he benefited at one point and he made a ton of money, and if he would have just been a little more forthcoming about what transpired before, would it have landed better with you, or did it land okay and you heard the message?
I didn't hear every word he said. I know the gist of it. I think what you're saying is correct. It would have landed better had he framed it a little differently and brought in the part which everyone immediately rushes to is like, what are the coaches' salaries again? And, and also there's always those veiled accusations, especially down in SEC country, is like, hasn't stuff always been sort of going on to gain an advantage to get players and all this stuff? So, has it changed that much? But I do understand it's a guy who's quickly getting old himself. I feel like sometimes, I get some of the sentiment too that he was saying, but I'm with you, Damon. I think he could have framed it differently. The idea to me being, from his angle, it can get frustrating. And I think for fans too, now with their favorite universities and all that, when a player or two who they're watching grow within that program, they're just not sure if that player is going to be there, in the third or fourth year. And I'm not taking a side here. I think it's good that the players are benefiting from their likeness and all that. But I think the concept of team is in a struggle right now with that sometimes, and I get it. And so it's going to be interesting how it works out, but you're going to have to adapt with it, or adapt or die, or adapt or retire, I guess is part of it too. But I do understand, because there is a frustration I hear from fans with it too about that. So he wasn't expressing a thought that isn't like pretty prevalent out there. It's why, to bring it closer to home, like Ty Robinson, I'm sure if he had wanted to, could have put himself out there on the market and got a whatever, Bryce Benhart, guys like that at certain positions. And it's kind of a cool deal. And I think it's why everybody gets so excited now when somebody actually announces, I'm sticking around here at this particular place for a fourth or fifth year. And you're seeing the same guys in work. I think it's why people are excited with basketball at Nebraska too right now, is because there's a hope that this isn't just a 1-year thing. You're going to have guys like Rink Mass and Bryce Williams and these guys back for one more season. And so I get the power struggle that's going on, though, that Saban's talking about, but I just don't think he put it as eloquently as he could have.
Well, and BC, you mentioned guys like Ty Robinson, and it's not like we're naive enough to think that they did not likely receive some financial assistance to stay here as well. Like, you know what I mean? So you can have my issue with what Saban said was that he made it seem like it was one or the other, where either you get paid or you care about what you're doing. And it's like, okay, well, Nick, you've been getting paid pretty well for a long time. Does that mean you don't care about what you're doing? Why are we assuming that the players can't have the same mindset that coaches have had for a while now, where they're making good money? That doesn't mean they're not invested in the place and the process and development. They're just getting compensated for it now. Like, it's not Ty Robinson came back for free.
Yeah, Ravi, I'm exactly with you, really. I don't think he framed it well at all, and I think that's why he was getting roasted for it pretty well from what I saw yesterday. So I get what he's going at, where it's frustrating for coaches because it's just different. It's different from everything we've known as far as how you build a team and the structure of, like, you used to have guys on a roster where you'd see him in their first or second year and you'd think to yourself, man, that's going to be exciting what he's going to look like in that third or fourth year and how that's going to build up. And now you're not always sure that's going to happen some places, but there are places, and I would think Alabama could be one of them. I know Nebraska can be one of them where that doesn't have to intercept you from keeping those guys in the program, as you're saying with like Ty Robinson. It's not like I'm sure Alabama has capabilities to keep a lot of good players and all that, as does Nebraska. So I'm probably going around in circles a little bit on it because the gist of it is I got where he was going with it, that it's kind of tough from a team standpoint compared to how it used to be, but it's just not how it used to be. And you just got to adapt with it the best you can. And whoever does is going to flourish, and whoever doesn't, I mean, if you don't want to be a part of it, you retire. And so he did, I guess. So it's going to work out well for him.
My man, Brian Christopherson from 24/7 Sports joining us. B-Sizzle, let me ask you something. And this Brady Hoke kind of referenced this on his way out the door at Michigan, and he's not alone either. He just had courage enough to say it, where he kind of said, I prefer coaching these kinds of players. And he had a little bit of an example, and basically it was the difference between 3 stars and 5 stars and high-end guys and this, that, and the other, where his niche was. Do you kind of separate coaches that you think could coach anybody, or coaches that need certain kinds of players? Because I wonder in my head, BC, what kind of Coach Rule would be like if he was recruiting all 4 and 5 stars like at Alabama. Like, would he be as endearing? I know I want good players, but it doesn't seem like I can have it both ways. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Would you get the real Coach Rule without him recruiting and developing and wanting to be about what he's about?
Man, that's a freaking good question at 8:07 a.m. for me.
Does that mean he can't coach Dylan Raiola then?
That's not what I'm saying. How many of those?
Okay, how many? Okay.
Could you have?
Like, where's the tipping point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to say, Damon, because I just can't know that hypothetical how you'd respond in that particular setting, but it's a good question. I mean, it just is. And I do think there is going to be a point where there is probably a separate category for certain guys who are able to flourish with a certain type of player and the certain type of setup, and others are going to have to maybe go to lower ground for lack of better phrasing, to kind of be what they want to be, and just develop guys who aren't in that, I guess, stratosphere as far as the NIL dollars and the bidding wars and all that goes on. So it is really going to be interesting. There is going to be a separation, I think, of some coaches, and maybe there's a few who can dabble in both, but I don't know. It's hard, but it's just an interesting time, where you've got to build a program where people know they're loved. I think that's what Nebraska is trying to do, where it's a family, where you feel like we have your best intentions for you. We're not just thinking about what you're making NIL wise here, but I've heard Rule say this several times. It's like we're aiming for your second NFL contract. Like that's what we're looking for. We're developing that type of person, that type of player with that goal in mind. And I think if you can get that to kids, that you have their best interests and that's what you're shooting for, some of them are going to take the long picture as opposed to the long view as opposed to the short one. And those guys are going to stick around and let you work with them. And there you go.
It's just interesting. Like I look at like Coach Ferentz or Coach Kleiman or Coach Leipold or even Jim Harbaugh. Right? Because they recruited really, really well the last 3 or 4 years down the stretch. He was getting high-end caliber guys, but the Michigan way still seemed to be the Michigan way. Like he kept it the way that he
didn't hear a lot of NIL stuff at
kept it the way he wanted it. And I just remember Coach Rule saying, the NFL is just too transactional for me. It wasn't enough about the relationships. So that's why that's why I'm asking the question about the types of coaches that we will be looking for on the heels of what Saban said that can still flourish in this game.
Yeah, and I think we got to be careful too to act like every player out there who's good is going to just take the highest bag.
That's the thing, because like Coach, he'll tell me, he's like, there's plenty of good players out there. It's up to us to find them and develop them. We don't have to play that game
and find the ones.
And I believe him.
And find the ones that are good fits for who you want to be, right? Like there's a lot of options. They're not all 5 stars are created equal, right?
Yeah.
Like they have different mindsets, different backgrounds. But I wonder, because you mentioned the relational part with Coach Rule a lot, right? And I asked you the question: if Saban was 20 years younger, if he'd be able, or if he'd be more willing to play this game, is part of it because he just doesn't have, like, I think where I was trying to get to is, does he just not have the energy to do it the relational way anymore? Like he doesn't have, he's 72 or whatever. Like he probably doesn't have the energy to be out on the road and making those relationships. He's not going to Ainsworth 8 times. You know what I mean? Like, does that make any sense, BC?
Yeah. Yes. And I happen to think, if you're 20 years younger, he's going to be coaching somewhere and he's going to be adapting as much as anybody else. So yeah, it just has to do with that. And I do go back to, Alabama's got resources, and not every player out there who could be courted by other schools is just going to raise their hand at the highest number either. Like, we shouldn't act like that. And I want to really stress that, because there's a lot of players who are going to look at the long view of like, okay, I was playing for a coach like Coach Saban or Coach Rule. If you really respect what he's doing in the program, I'm going to stick with this. And I know they're going to take care of me here to a good number or whatever. That's fair. And they're going to develop me for the future. And so, are you going to lose a few along the way? That just say, no, I'm sorry, I get 300,000, I'm just throwing whatever, over here. There's going to be a few of those, but I want to be careful to not generalize that every like big stars like that, or all the kids are like that. 'Cause I know there's not, I know there's guys who, but it is a fascinating tug of war going on. So, whatever side people fall on, what Saban going front and center as sort of the face of college football for the last 2 decades, it just shows you how real that power struggle is, like in the minds of some coaches. And I think there is going to be categories that separate between coaches who can really deal with it. And it's still going to come down to relationships. I agree with that totally. It's going to be like, does that player believe this coach wants the best for me and my family, cares about me just outside of football? He's thinking about building me also as a player, if we're talking about that, to be like a second contract guy. All that stuff still matters the most of all, I think. And I think Saban in his heyday is plenty capable of that, but there comes a point when it's also just good to be he's going to have a good job for him, like in retirement, talking about whatever he wants to talk about. So it's going to work out for him fine too.
When you're taking a look at, I want to go to Friday in Minneapolis and Nebraska being a 3 seed real quick here, BC. Do you think Nebraska, and this is totally opinion, will get to a point where we'll look back on Trev's decisions with Coach Hoiberg, Coach Hoiberg's decisions on coaching hires, where they could stack a little success, where we'll look back at that as one of those, man, that was a really good decision on both parts as the turning point to grow this program?
Yes. And I like when people in the power chair have the patience to say, I know this guy is a really good basketball coach and has it in him to succeed here. We're not on the right plan right now, and we just have to reroute. And that's what they did. If you look at Fred's background, and I know it's going back before the Bulls and all that, but Iowa State, they were really friggin' good while he was there, and he did it a certain way, and he was kind of ahead of the transfer game a little bit in how they did it and some of the guys they got. And by the time he got back here, you had COVID, the COVID year. And then, it was sort of everybody was in the portal, and I think the dynamic had changed a lot, and you had to kind of readjust how you were going to attack it and which type of players you wanted to go after through that. And he made a tough staff move. Everybody knows that. And it's worked out really well. But I do applaud Trev too for, having patience and saying, okay, let's redirect this plan. And I'm not saying Fred wasn't thinking that himself, but both of them together had being on the same page with that. And people last year would even ask before this season, like, oh, is Fred on the hot seat and stuff like that? And I kind of dismissed it because I really thought he was in a great place from everything I'd hear with Trev about what they did last year as like sort of a year one of a reset. I mean, I always, like, whenever I heard Trev talk about him, I would kind of view it that way. So I'd be like, I don't think so at all. I think they love where they're on the same page with what they're doing. And the first 3 years of Hoiberg's tenure happened and they were disappointing. Yes. But it's gone and they've moved on and they've switched direction and they feel good about it now. And I'm glad they've stuck with that because it's showing itself.
So I said something a couple years ago when Trev first got hired, and I said it with a little uncertainty because I didn't have a big enough sample size. But I said, Trev is the kind of person in a leadership role that will ask himself and his staff, because he's pretty demanding of his staff, where he'll say, have I done everything that I can and that we can to make them successful? So he wasn't going to make any decisions until he had exhausted those options. And he's since kind of doubled down on it when he said, he gave me the analogy of building the moat and establishing space so the coaches could go to work because he felt like he had really, really good coaches. I feel better about that statement a couple of years removed because I think it's a really good combination of a guy that he's not going to do anything with his coaches or his staff that I don't think he's willing to do himself. And I think there's power in that because if he hasn't exhausted all options, he's going to give you every opportunity to exhaust yours.
No, that's a good point. And, you know, I don't know what else he felt like he needed to add to the equation to give them everything they needed. But if, you know, whatever was done there, and that'd be a good question for him coming up here with all the success they're having. It sure worked. And I just give Fred a lot of credit to, you know, for believing in sort of their reset project and how they were going to do it. And then seeing what happened last year and not getting frustrated by the fact that, you know, they didn't make the postseason. I think he believes they could have and would have had there not been some injuries on that team. I don't know if that would have happened, but he believed that. And so he said, no, we're doubling down basically on this way of doing things and the type of guys we were going to get in here. And I keep going back to this because I think it needs to be said. Rink Mass and Bryce Williams are really good players, but when they were added as like commits from the portal, not everybody was jumping up and down like that. Nebraska just landed the top 4 or 5 guys, you know, that were out there. It was Fred Hoiberg and his staff seeing players that they really thought they're going to fit exactly doing this in my system. And he's going to play off this guy this way, ideally. And they saw the picture before other people on the outside did. People thought they were good players, but they weren't acting like, I mean, honestly, Nebraska was picked 12th in the preseason, but a lot of people around here probably would have nodded their head to that if they're honest. Like that. So let's be real. There wasn't that belief until, you know, January or so from even some in the fan base about what these guys could do. And they just have, they've proven Fred's belief in them correct.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, we had a question earlier about where Kendeigh belonged. He obviously got second team All Big Ten. We got a question earlier about if we thought he belonged there, or maybe we're giving too much credit, maybe not giving other guys on Nebraska enough credit. How did you kind of view Rink as third team, Kendeigh as second team? Like, did you think that was appropriate in terms of a representation of Nebraska's accomplishments this season?
Yes, I viewed it exactly that way. I got to vote in it, and I had Kendeigh second and Rink third team. And I had Jawan Gary on my all-defensive team because I thought Nebraska deserved a rep because I thought they're one of the best defensive teams in the league from February 1st on and had top 50 defensive metrics nationally. So I thought he was a rep for that. He didn't get it. But Kendeigh at second team, to me, made sense because I listened closely to Fred and other coaches after the games. And it was always him that they would want to shut off first. Like, you know, you put up on the board, like, okay, what do we got to do with this squad? Keisei's number one on that board. And yeah, he would have dry spells at times. but just the attention that he had to be given from the other side. And he still went and got his plenty of times to have the numbers. But then when you factor like what a difficult scout he is for the opposing squad, that to me was like, why? I mean, and the coaches voted him second too, and that tells you something because they know that he makes their scout troublesome. And I think in the second half against Michigan that was a perfect example of Kendeigh too, because he had 23, goes off, he ends up with 30, so he only had 7. But if you look at some of the buckets they got, like by the hoop and stuff like that, and I know a lot of the audience was watching Nebraska, Iowa women for good reason, but there are a lot of buckets at the rim, and Kendeigh was getting attention, and they're drawing people away from it. It was creating stuff for his teammates without him even touching the ball sometimes. He was a fabulous decoy, so I think you have to factor all that in with those sort of decisions.
BC, I was joking with Ravi earlier about who would, because Coach Hoiberg had said, hey, he just referenced Iowa State and the fan base as kind of an example of what Nebraska's fan base could do for Nebraska and Minnesota, which got me thinking about Iowa State being here next year, Iowa State being here next week. Listen, you guys will be covering a ton of stuff, right? Nebraska will be playing, not so much you guys, but Creighton will be playing, Nebraska baseball will be playing. How much attention do you think media can give what's happening in Omaha next week?
It'll still get what it needs. Yeah, they're always not as much as maybe it would. There'll be some people that are pulled away on the Nebraska end for sure, and Creighton being wherever they are. But your point is well taken. There's going to be some people who just aren't there because they can't be. It'll still be an awesome event there, and I mean, especially if Iowa State or something is there, I mean, they're going to have a amazing crowd, and there's all that media is going to be there, so it'll work out. But I can't tell you,
they got to be cheering like crazy for Kansas to get a 3-seater.
Yeah, I can't tell. I
mean, Iowa State and Kansas would be good.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I can't tell you guys how enjoyable the last month has been for me with basketball. It really has. Like I grew up watching Raycom Husker basketball in the 80s, 90s. People like always kind of say, oh, you're the football guy, because that's been my beat for a long time. When I got started as a Journal Star, one of the first things I did was the Barry Collier beat. I was the second guy over there, and I was with Husker basketball. But it goes back to my youth and like watching this team, and the Danny Nee teams, and how close they were. And I lived and died with a few of those squads growing up. So I've just got a real kick out of this particular team, how they mesh together, how the fan base responds to Husker basketball when they're giving them something to believe in. They really want it badly. And I do think they're going to have a big crowd up in Minneapolis, and it's going to be well covered by media. And I think it's awesome. And I think Matt Rule would be the first to say, this is great that for like 3 to 4 weeks, there's been as much talk about basketball as like the portal wide receivers. It's nice to have that distraction and be where we are.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 BC. Great stuff as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Big.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. We will be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we are going to be joined by Andy Kendeigh here in just a second. But before we are joined by him, I want to remind you about the Omaha Supernovas. We're going to be talking to the team captain here in about an hour. But before that, I want to remind you that they're playing again tomorrow night here in Omaha against the Atlanta Vibe, 7 p.m. You can get tickets either by listening to the show. We're going to give them away at the end of the show, or you can go to supernovas.com because we only have 4 tickets to give away. They have more than that to sell. Go to supernovas.com. You can get tickets either for Thursday or Saturday to the CHI Health Center to see your Supernovas back in action here at home. That's supernovas.com. There's a bunch of stuff that we want to get to. We getting Andy? Okay. That we'll get to after we talk to Andy here. But BC brought up some really good stuff in his interview there. Obviously, we still want to get to some NFL free agency as well. Guy Derrick Henry is going to play for the Ravens.
Dude,
do you like that deal?
I mean, I don't like it as much as like NFL experts do.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess we'll see what he's got left. If I was DH, I would have waited, but
to not have to deal with training camp and kind of do the Roger Clemens late career thing.
Yeah, because we'll see.
Yeah, because he's 30, 31.
I think he's 30.
Yeah.
But I guess that's not more rushing yards. Isn't what they need.
Isn't the problem for
no.
I think
because those yards are going to go to somebody.
Yeah.
Now this year it's him.
Yeah, whether it's Lamar, whether it's Derrick Henry, whether
Gus,
it's
or whoever
it is, they're going to get the rushing yards.
Yeah.
We're going to get to our guy Andy Kendeigh here
We've got him.
Thank you. We're going to get to Andy Kendeigh here from KETV. Andy, what's going on?
Good morning, boys. How's it going?
AK, how we doing, bud?
We're doing all right. It was early start time. We had to get my senior to the airport today at 4 a.m.
Visit?
So it's yeah. It's it's show choir nationals this weekend.
And they're
show choir nationals.
So they're really good.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. I prefer a flight leave at like 11 a.m. rather than 4 a.m. But that's all good. It's all good. What you do for your kids?
We have a P1 whose daughter used to be in cheerleading, and a lot of 5:36, 6 a.m. drives. Listening, getting ready to listen to the show for that guy. I was just like, the joys.
Late night last night too. Yeah, late night, quick morning, late night. Story of my life.
AK, you think this? I don't know how much you got to watch yesterday of the kind of the opening rounds of some of the major conferences, but a lot of big leads, a lot of running down from behind, a lot of trying to hang on. Man, how much of this do you think is going to be a microcosm of what we see as this thing gets ramped up today? The year's already been crazy, especially if you're in top 25, man. But you ready for this?
Well, especially when you look at matchups, and you look at matchups in terms of what teams really need to win to be in the big dance, So that's why I think Nebraska really has a decent draw, because the guys, the teams in their draw, Michigan, Penn State, Indiana, whoever they get, I mean, those teams are already out of it. They'd have to run the table to get in the tournament. I like the fact that Nebraska is sitting where they're at and then gets another crack at Illinois if they can get past the opening round on Friday. But I'll tell you, man, this is why conference tournament season is so unpredictable, is because you have so many teams that are fighting for their life. Like their tournament starts this week. Forget about Selection Sunday. Their tournament starts now. And so whether you're looking at the Big Ten, Big East, whatever conference you're looking at, you check out and see what team is fighting for their postseason lives, and that gives you a good indication what it's going to be all about. Because and then you look at a team that just needs to run the table, and we've seen that before. Seeing the team just get hot for 4 days and they get in, and they would have had no shot if it wasn't for the conference tournament. That's why the conference tournament weekend is so unpredictable.
Ravi thinks I'm crazy, but I told him a team a couple weeks ago to watch it. Penn State gives me the willies a little bit. Like something about them that I don't know. I told them they're going to get somebody. For some reason that basketball team bothers me as a team on the outside looking.
Yeah, I like that assessment, DB. And you know what other game? I mean, check out. You want to see a bloodbath? Look at Ohio State, Iowa. You talk about two teams that are absolutely scratching and clawing, and think that they still have a shot.
I'd much rather Nebraska, if they have ever had to down the road, see Ohio State than Iowa. I like that matchup better than I do Iowa.
I agree. I think Iowa's really dangerous, and they could put something together here in the next couple of days. And Iowa's a team that can do it. But I think Penn State is exactly what you said. They're a dangerous team, and man, that's why. I mean, you think you got a good draw. You're looking at the draw. You're like, oh yeah, Nebraska's got a pretty good draw. And you're like, yeah, but you still got to play the games, right? You still got to show up, and who knows what's going to happen when they.
It's like we got. I have to put my money where my mouth is, right? Because last week or 2 weeks ago, I was like, yeah, Nebraska's a good team. It's okay to say out loud. And then Monday or last week, I said it's okay to look at the draw and say we have a good draw, but we have this fear that we're not good enough, so we can't do it. But now that it's here, I'm afraid to be looking at the draw.
Right.
It's kind of like how, Creighton fans do the same thing in a different sense, right? When they're talking about NCAA tournament expectations, they always go, what's the first thing they say when you're talking about Creighton in the NCAA tournament? Well, it depends on the matchup. Depends on the matchup. You got to be careful with the matchup.
Absolutely.
And you're like, no kidding. Where I'm like, yeah, that's obvious. But it's like, okay, if Creighton is going to be ranked in the top 10, they need to make the Sweet 16. Like, I don't care what the matchup is. That's something that needs to happen, right? But so there's kind of this hesitancy from both fan bases at different points because it's like, are we really that? Is that who we really are?
Right. And how many times have you had this talk? Hey, did you see Creighton's up on the 2 line? You see Creighton's up on the 2 line? Wouldn't you rather be a 3 to get that 3 thing, man?
No, be a 2. Be a 2.
I know. I love that. Because I was guilty of it yesterday as well. It's like you're looking at the bracket, you're like, ooh, look at these possible matchups and the whole bit. And
you're like, ooh, I don't know if I like those 7-10s coming in the second round. It's like, no, be a 2 seed. It's better with the number is smaller.
Yeah. AK, from my point of I was going to say, from our point of view, we look at the sites in which
locations as much as anything, right?
Can we drive? Can we drive this?
Well, I was saying I want to be the 2 in Indianapolis. Like, get me over there. Let's go.
Yeah. No question.
What in the world are you guys going to do next week on Thursday and Saturday with the tournament here, knowing we've got local teams playing as well?
Well, isn't Omaha Friday, Sunday?
Is Omaha Friday, Sunday, or Thursday, Saturday?
I'm gonna have to double check, but I take it one day at a time. But I will say it is gonna be crazy.
you and Schneider, Valerie Bertinelli, you old heads.
Yeah, get back on your feet. Yeah, you
well
take
played.
it one day at a time because you've got to deal with, for the first time, 4 teams with relevant tournament journeys, right? Like you've got the women, Creighton and Nebraska, and the men, and so we're going to have to figure out how to get to them all. Oh, and by the way, Omaha hosts. So that is going to be talk about stretching the department thin and maybe getting some news help, where it's going to be an interesting deal. And the Omaha bracket's really interesting too, because you kind of keep an eye on that. And if I'm not mistaken, this could be the first time that Kansas doesn't get put in Omaha if that's the way it comes out. You're seeing the brackets these days, and Kansas is not one of the teams coming, which I think would be unique. So, because Kansas always gives you a little punch in terms of people and interest and all the tourists coming to town and fans. But Iowa State is a nice little punch in the arm for the local economy, because they'll travel well.
That's Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Andy, well, try to get some sleep this week, because I don't think you're going to get any next week. So try and get a couple. I know you didn't last night. So try and get a little sleep this weekend. See what you can do, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
All good, guys. Take care.
Thanks, AK.
Yeah, they're gonna be stretched thin.
Yeah, I always feel, I don't know, it's not bad. Like, they have work to do, and it could be worse. I mean, the women's and men's teams could be at home, but it is going to be a grind.
It's for sure going to be a grind, and got to get the people out there. Got to get the people what they want.
Nebraska baseball's at home. I think they have New Mexico State. I
think Nebraska baseball may get glazed over that next weekend.
It's just a lot going on.
It is. There's a lot going on. I think people are
wrestling.
I think people will start paying more attention to baseball about April 2nd, when Creighton and Nebraska kick off. That's when the Hoops Heads baseball season starts. Is on April 2nd. Coming up next, we've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio here, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio and 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we are coming down the last couple days to get entries in for the Warhorse Casino $1 Million Bracket Challenge. As we wind down towards Selection Sunday here, you've got through tomorrow to get either a $50 sportsbook wager in or 50 points on slots and racing to earn additional entries for the $1 Million Bracket Challenge. Got to be a Warhorse Rewards member to be eligible, and you have to make sure you go validate those entries starting on March 18th. But even if you don't win that $1 million, still $10,000 in prizes for the top brackets, including prizes each week as we go throughout the tournament. There's also a $100,000 prop card challenge that I'm going to start telling you guys about probably tomorrow, because you've got all the way through the 28th to get eligible for the prop card challenge, because that is just for the semifinals and the finals. So even if you don't get in for the $1 million bracket challenge, which you definitely should, you're still going to have a chance to win some money with our friends at Warhorse Casino with the prop card challenge. And we'll start telling you more about that tomorrow. That's Warhorse Casino and Sportsbook. Go to warhorsecasino.com for more details. A couple things that we've been trying, kind of talking about some today, but we've been trying to get to as well. We haven't got to much NFL yet, and I wanted to make sure we did that because another kind of active day in free agency, and
100%.
I'm kind of sitting there and I'm looking at the moves a certain team is making. Can you guess what that team is that I think they're doing a good job? And I don't think we've talked about them yet.
Well, I think the team that's done the best job in free agency is, well, one of the best, certainly top 3 or 4 you've been hating on.
Who?
That would be the Steelers.
Well, I said we haven't talked about it. We didn't even talk about Steelers anymore. Hey, Russell Wilson, man.
Patrick Queen.
They made a trade yesterday.
Yeah. Like, got a position of need. A team that we
kind of low-key, team we haven't talked about yet.
Well, I'll tell you who flipped since yesterday morning for me.
Who?
That I kind of like. I can see what they're doing.
What?
Green Bay.
Okay.
I was a little hard on Green Bay, even though I loved Jacobs. Mm-hmm. I didn't know if he should cost that much.
Yeah, the value of him over Aaron Jones for that money.
Low key? The Giants?
Nope, not the Giants. Similar color scheme, if that helps.
The team that's had the best free agency that belongs in the top 5 as well as the Texans.
Nailed it.
The
trade for Joe Mixon.
And they got Hunter.
They get Danielle Hunter, who had, I don't know if people, he had 16 and a half sacks last year.
He's done back-to-back years, double digits.
And more than that, really good in the rush defense as well. 23 and a half tackles for loss. Yeah. Also led the NFL.
They're about ready.
You already have, and you've also got CJ Stroud year 2.
Well, how about the Lions getting Carlton Davis?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best corner on the market, not named Snead, and Snead isn't
actually on the market yet. Still sort of under contract.
Were you surprised? Who told us yesterday? Who were we talking to yesterday that thought T. Higgins' deal eventually gets done in Cincinnati?
That was Cynthia.
I don't know.
She was adamant that Snead's gone.
Yeah.
And
which I could see.
I can too, but I kind of assumed T. Higgins was in that same boat. And she thought that with the cap space and what they need, that maybe Higgins ends up getting the long-term deal done.
Yeah. So what is Denver doing clearing all that money? They cleared like $24 million quietly yesterday.
Yeah. What are they after?
I don't know.
Where are they going?
I don't know. I like the Texans.
That was the team that I had in mind.
I like the Steelers. I love the Vikings.
The Vikings have done well.
I'm telling you. And see, they have some off the radar guy. Look at the 3 linebackers that outside of Van Ginkel that Brian Flores has to work with in Minnesota now. I
also like Brian Flores a lot. I think he's really good at what he does.
I don't really mind the Raiders either.
The Raiders,
and I know you think that was a gaudy price tag for Wilkins. I still don't know what year 4 looks like for that money.
I thought it was at first blush, I thought it was a little high, but I also thought they had to overpay to get him. So I understand it, right?
I wonder, I don't think getting Poyer and a couple guys from Miami replaces Wilkins, but
they did okay.
They did okay.
Yeah, they pivoted okay.
That offense is still going to score.
Yeah, a lot.
But I didn't mind Miami either.
No, they did okay. I wasn't blown away, but for what situation they were in, I thought they pivoted pretty well. I'm still trying to figure out what the 49ers are doing. I don't love getting rid of Armstead.
You got rid of really, really good hyphenated non-colonialism last name linebacker.
Non-colonialism.
He's in he went to Houston. What?
So not like Johnson or Windsor. No, none of those.
Did I say that out loud? Is this thing?
I might be. You know
what I'm talking about?
He
wore 51. He has the elbow brace.
Yeah.
Gosh, he's escaped. I said that. It's fine.
His name is escaping me at the moment.
Fine. His name's not like Aaron Smith.
Who am I missing? Not a lot of John Smiths in that.
Yeah. The Giants. Yes. They've got some room to move now.
Yeah. So and this kind of gets us in. It's hard to talk about free agency without the draft, right? Because a lot of these moves.
But it's not to sign their rookie pool.
No. I just mean in terms of the.
Why is his name escaping me?
Well, the guy I'm confusing him with the guy they signed in Gross Matos.
Nope.
Right. So, but it's another hyphenated name that is not super.
It's
colonial.
not really. Is it Islar? Is it?
I don't know.
He had 120 tackles, man.
Yeah,
and
I'm
I'm gonna find it, but keep going.
Well, so with a lot of these teams, Giants in particular, Giants, I think Minnesota's another example of this. You can't. I'm not even talking about the money for it, but it's hard to remove the moves they're making from what we think they plan to do in the draft, right? Because some of these moves, and maybe it's the same with Denver, although I don't totally see the path as much there. Like Sam Darnold, the signing of Sam Darnold to replace Kirk Cousins makes sense if you're drafting a quarterback, or you think you can get a guy that you like, right? It makes less sense if you don't really have a plan there. Signing Jacoby Brissett and trading Mac Jones makes sense if you're picking Jaden Daniels or Drake May at 3. It doesn't make a lot of sense if you're like, yeah, maybe Jacoby Brissett can be that guy. I'm kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. That's one of the things with Las Vegas. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop there because I don't think Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew is the answer at quarterback.
So you expect them to move?
Either move, trade for Justin Fields.
Everybody loved your guy's pro day yesterday, Bo Nix.
I'm not. Quit calling him my guy. What are we doing?
I met your other guy, JJ McCarthy.
I might fight you today.
You're gonna be all right.
I might fight you today.
It's all in good fun.
I'll take Penix over all of those dudes.
Yeah, so I think the 20th, the 27th, and 28th of March are the 3 pro days.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Caleb, that's Drake, and is JJ right after that?
Probably.
I think it's the big 3 in order. Because some of those guys are fighting to be 4th. Whose pro day is March 28th? I know North Carolina's is the 27th.
Let's see. We'll see if we can find out.
So it's Williams on the 20th, May on the 27th, and I can't remember who's the 28th, but I'm guessing all the real buzz will start on like the eve of March 28th. Because the 27th and 28th are back-to-back days. And then I think we can slot the
So
quarterbacks.
27th is Daniels.
And then May's the 28th.
May is the 28th.
Yeah. So it goes 20. Yeah. Daniels is the 27th. May is the 20th.
And Penix is the 28th also.
So we'll know.
I know we like to forget about my guy, but
I think I started the Penix hype train during the playoffs, and my guy from Michigan on social media was killing me. He's like, he's not going to make those throws against Michigan. I mean, he wasn't a jerk about it. He was pretty mad.
No, he made the throws against Michigan, but Michigan made the plays on his wide receivers. That's what happened. Like, if you watch that game, that's what happened.
I didn't love him though against Michigan.
He wasn't as good as he was the week before.
Yeah.
But
I was quick to be able, I could give Michigan credit too. I liked what they were doing. So that was one of the weird things that I watched repeatedly. This is why people shouldn't watch games with me, is I looked at a lot of the pre-snap stuff that Michigan was doing in the secondary. His staff was sick. Michigan
watch
is
games
well coached.
You watch games live like you're scouting a game.
Yeah, and it annoys some people. Yeah, I know it. I remember
all right.
Jace, this is last year, maybe? No, it's back in the old house. It was a little bit ago, but Jay's parents were watching Nebraska with me, and I had to always apologize. I was like, hey, sorry, I got to stop this and go back. And
yeah, it couldn't have been last year because you were busy last year during Nebraska games.
Yeah, so
I don't know if you.
It's a couple 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, I apologize, and I would take pictures and I would draw and I would send it out on social media.
Yeah,
and I'm sure Bruce had to be like, this dude is a weirdo.
Should have watched this game at home.
How far is Gothenburg?
It's a short drive. No, I would rather take Penix late than or in the either late first or early second.
He's not getting past 50.
No, I think most places I'm seeing are 44, 45.
So that's early. That's early second.
It's almost mid-second at that point. But I would either trade up early into the second or late into the first, use my other first-round asset for something else I need, rather than take a chance on some of these guys.
I'm waiting for Poles to take the podium so I can figure out what's going on with Chicago. Because he hasn't ever said
He hasn't for sure said they're trading him.
Yeah.
We'll talk to Jacob Padilla coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We are back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. And for this third hour, we're on KFOR in Lincoln as well. We are efforting Jacob Padilla.
He's here.
Oh, he's here. That's terrific.
Young Yaakov.
We are now joined by Jacob Padilla of Hurrdat Sports. Jacob, how are you this morning?
Hey, guys. Good morning. I'm doing all right.
Hi, JP. You're smiling. That's good. I feel a pot shot coming. Have you been saving anything up that you want to get off your chest early?
Take a shot, Jacob. He's been mean to me today.
That's not true. Ravi's kind of in his feels today, Jacob. I don't know what's going on, but he's kind of in his feels.
Well, usually you let me run all over you, and you were fighting back today. I don't like it.
It's not necessarily a shot. It's more of a question, just kind of something I've been wondering about, just listening to the show from time to time.
Yes.
Why do you describe your affinities as weird? Isn't that kind of insulting?
Me?
Yeah. Like you say, I have this weird affinity for a certain person. Like, why is it weird? Are they not worth having?
Because, like, if you ask me to explain it, sometimes it's kind of hard to justify. And especially with your personality, you'd look at it, you'd go, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's yours. So, okay, I'll go with it. Mean like that's what you would say to me,
sometimes a little irrational.
That's not true.
I mean,
I do like a lot of weird, like, just kind of off the radar
guys you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why, JP. It's a little different, man. Have you recovered? Because you're going to be pretty busy coming up here over the next 7 to 10 days. What'd you do Sunday? You had to ride a little bit. Did you rest a little?
No, I had tryouts.
Oh, that's right.
I was in a gym all day on Sunday. So yeah,
Hey, so how are you going to recover? How are you going to recover from like the Nate Kelly days and things like that, man? Are you going to be all right?
Yeah, we'll get started here soon after I get back from New York at some point. But yeah, should be good. But I took yesterday off. I planned to get like 4 things done. I got like 1 of them done. So that was good. But yeah, reloaded, recharged, ready to head to New York.
Let me ask a Packer fan. You cool with the price tag for swapping Jacobs for Jones?
Not really.
It seemed high.
Not the way I described it. I understand the business side of it and kind of the worry about Jones as he gets older.
I believe the tweet from Jacob was, "I am sad."
Yes.
I like Jones. I'm a big Jones guy too.
I mean, am I right, JP?
I don't know how Packers fans felt about, because Jacobs is a stud. No question.
Josh Jacobs is real.
DB here for Jacobs.
Yeah.
But the price tag, I was like, I wondered about Jones' history maybe, or was there something going on? It just seemed kind of excessive.
Yeah, it just seemed like they were worried about him, especially coming off this last year where he did miss so many times and it was pretty damaging to their efforts because he was so important to their offense. And obviously we saw once he got healthy down the stretch how awesome it was and how important it was for them. So I think they're probably just looking for something a little bit more reliable with that money, especially because they turned around and spent a ton on a safety, and it has some other spots to fill here, but we'll see. I'm hoping that
you keep Jair, like that secondary could be pretty legit in Lambeau.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Green Bay like splurging on a top free agent. Doesn't happen. Or hasn't happened.
I thought about Pittsburgh, right? We got those 2 old school, not a lot of movement in free agency. We're usually letting guys go. But you think Bakhtiari has any good football left in him?
I think he does. I just don't know how long he can do it. Like I think if he can get back out on the field, I think he can still be good. It's just a matter of, all right, how long is that going to last at this point? With the knee situation just seems like it's not quite Lonzo Ball, where we just don't know exactly what's happening on. He just can't really play anymore. But yeah, it was kind of bizarre the way the whole thing played out. And hopefully for his sake, he can get healthy, because he's a really good player, obviously. And he's a guy that's kind of fun to root for. But yeah, at that price tag and kind of, again, the unreliability, I think Green Bay is just kind of moving ahead. There, no old guys allowed. Preston Smith is the only dude over like 26 on the entire roster. So
maybe Vice President Rogers can get him on the cheap in New York.
I'm sure that's what everybody's expecting.
That's his boy. I mean, he loved Bakhtiari in Green Bay.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, those two are tight. So I guess it's a matter of now. All right, where is he health wise and in recovery, because the last report out of Green Bay, it did seem super positive about where he was at, and that's part of why it's like, at that point everybody knew they were going to cut him, and that was just going to be it.
You like the interdivisional stuff?
No, I do not. It's very much.
Well, you had Peak Favre to Minnesota. That's got to be the worst, because it's a really good player, but gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah, and that's the worst part about the Jones thing is
now it's Minnesota.
Used to it.
Give it to you.
It seems like every single player that leaves Green Bay goes to either the Bears or the Vikings. I actually saw a flow chart on Twitter yesterday. Somebody put down just like where people end up, and basically the three teams were the Jets, the Vikings, and the Bears, and they were all the little like questions that you answered, like, oh, you leave disgruntled, yes, no, all that type of stuff, and it's like, yeah, that feels actually pretty accurate. So it's gonna be tough seeing him twice a year, not being able to root for him like I would like to, because I tweeted out like during that run towards the end of the season, he's honestly one of the most entertaining, like fun to watch Packers that I've seen during my time as a fan. Like I just love watching him play football, and that's Ravi. That's why I'm sad.
No, and you made me sad now just mentioning Lonzo Ball, because I have a weird affinity so
does Micah, and I can't stand it.
Of Lonzo Ball. It bums me out a little bit when you mention him. I just got sad on the inside. I was
like that with Brandon Roy.
I've been thinking about Lonzo Ball for the last like 5 minutes now. So JP, we've got the Big East, the final part of the Big East Awards coming up here in a couple hours, being announced in New York. Do you expect Baylor Shireman to have a real shot at that Big East Player of the Year award, or you think Creighton fans might get triggered because he gets a co, like Fred Hoiberg got the co on Coach of the Year?
Would you stop?
I'm just asking the question.
See,
I don't know how the voting's gonna go. Like Greg McDermott himself said, like best player, best team is how he believes the voting should go.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many of his fellow coaches. Seems like that's a vote for Tristan Newton coming from Mac at least. So that's one in his favor. Yeah. So I don't know how many of the other coaches kind of feel the same way. I definitely feel like Baylor is deserving, and Creighton finishing second. I think that kind of gives him a stronger argument that the run they made down the stretch to get in that position, because obviously Devin Carter would be up there as well, but he's 7th place in the league, and you just unlikely to see someone on the 7th place team get votes at that spot. But I mean, that for what unanimous selections for the first team, Baylor's one of them. He's very much in the mix. I just don't know, are you going to reward the individual or are you going to reward the team? And I can see arguments for both. I don't subscribe to it always has to be the best player on the best team. I think there's more nuance to that, and you have to kind of examine all the aspects and kind of what that particular player does and how instrumental he is specifically compared to his teammates. And I just feel like that UConn team is so balanced, and there's enough of like the efficiency questions with Newton that knock against them, as opposed to like a Kolek last year where Marquette was really balanced as well, and he wasn't even their leading scorer or anything like that. But he did so much for that team, and that's kind of where Newton's at, just not as efficient as Kolek was last year. So that's kind of, I think, where it opens the door, especially like Baylor. He's on a really balanced team as well, but there's more responsibility on each of those guys. And Baylor's been kind of cleared himself from the others in terms of consistency, start to finish, how good he's been, and all the different ways that he impacts the game. Because he does like basically a lot of the same stuff that Newton does in terms of the guy that can rebound, distribute, and score. He's just more efficient at it.
Jordan or Jacob, sorry, I don't want to.
Wow, hey, you giving a little brotherly love?
No, sorry, yeah, I don't know what happened there. I don't want to totally change gears on you here, but there's a report coming out right now from Yahoo, Ross Dellinger, and Houston Chronicle that Trev Alberts is close to being named the next athletic director at Texas A&M.
Oh.
Any thoughts? It's not. They're saying not done, but it is expected to get done.
That's kind of wow. Sorry,
not to just throw that at you. I started getting pinged on the YouTube chat, and so I was searching it on Twitter. It's being reported by, I'm probably going to butcher this, Brent Zwerneman from the Houston Chronicle, saying Ross Dellinger saying it's been confirmed to him and Yahoo Sports. I'm a little shocked by this, DB. I don't know how this is hitting you.
It's not good. We'll see what happens here in the 11th hour, though.
Think they might make a pitch to try and keep him?
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay,
we'll see.
All right. Feels like DB knows something he's not allowed to say right now. That's the vibe I'm getting there. Sorry, I had to get that out there so people didn't think we weren't paying attention. But we'll get back to college basketball here, JP, unless you have thoughts on Trev.
No, that obviously I think would be a big loss for Nebraska at this stage, with the way things are heading and what he's done here. Obviously being an alumnus that feels just kind of bizarre. How did he end up as Texas A&M's target? And kind of what's the offer there? Like what's he interested in to potentially leave to take that job versus what Nebraska's able to offer. Being in Big Ten, SEC, like those are the two.
Yeah, he's in good position already.
Yeah. So
we'll
see. I guess
it's an interesting move. We'll see if DB's cryptic response plays out in the next hour or so. But we'll see on that. Getting back to the NCAA tournament though, and Creighton. Well, not just the NCAA. You got Big East coming up as well. How do you feel about Creighton's draw as they look at trying to capture their first Big East tournament title?
I mean, it's probably with the way the Big East is this year, like there's no easy draw. Like Creighton's struggled with every team they're going to face, but they've also beat all of them. So like there's no way the only bad teams are going to get knocked out before Creighton has a chance to play any of them. So like Providence obviously has given them issues in the past, but they've also beat them and they're a better team. And Providence hasn't been playing as well lately as they had been. But that's not going to be an easy game in the first round. And then you got Marquette Villanova in the second, again, two teams that Creighton is split with. And so I think that there was no real easy draw, and there's no way it was going to work out that it was going to, that's certainly easier than any other. I think every team they've played, they beat and they've lost to and beat so far. So you got, whether it's Providence, Marquette, or Villanova, and then UConn, it's going to be basically a rubber match for all those games. So I like the way that Creighton's playing right now. And I think they're certainly capable of it, but the draw is what it is. Like they're going to, again, they've seen all these teams. That's what it is in the conference deal. And they can win or lose any of these.
Jacob, it's weird. And I know it would take a few wins to get there, but how much does a desperate St. John's team concern you on the other half?
I think I'd rather Creighton see St. John's than UConn, unless they're just looking for the.
I mean, they played UConn relatively tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and home versus away, like UConn has just been unreal at home, and they've just been really good on the road. So in a neutral site, you kind of see how that where the level ground is between that. Although I don't know how neutral it'll be. Like if they get past St. John's, I'm sure they'll have plenty of fans there. Should be a great atmosphere. Not that I've ever been there. This will be a new experience for me to kind of see what the crowds are like there. But again, like anybody they play, it's going to be a rubber match. And UConn, I think, if you're looking like, all right, you want to win this league, try to get to a 2 seed, like UConn Although at the very that late in the process, I don't know how much they're paying attention, but that would be one more huge mark in their favor, especially if they take out Marquette and then UConn in terms of just seeding wise, that would be huge feather in their cap. You'd obviously jump ahead of Marquette, I would imagine there on the seed line they're on, and then UConn could push you up to that 2 range as well. So there is a lot to play, but I think in terms of just winning the deal, I still lean to the less talented team if you're looking at the easiest path to winning one, which is obviously something Creighton hasn't done yet. So yeah, St. John's obviously desperate, and Creighton already experienced playing them on the road with that desperation. So again, I don't. It's going to come down to just how well Creighton plays, because all these teams are capable of really providing challenges.
I think I think if they knock off Marquette, they're for sure a 2. I think even if they just get to the final, I don't even think they have to beat UConn to get to that 2 line, because they're sort of flirting with it already.
I remember Jacob, this was like the Monday or Tuesday I first got back, and I said, the Jays are going to be a trendy pick. It's going to, I don't know how trendy they would be at a 2, but as a 3, I figured people would really take a look at the Jays as a 2. Man, would that buoy or kind of level the expectations? Does that change a little?
In terms of just people picking them,
the perception
or whatever.
Because Ravi was just joking earlier, if you're a good team, you're just a good team, right? The seed, the difference between a 2, 3, and 4, or however you feel about Creighton is whatever.
Well, and I was
and 2, 3 will end up in the same spot, right? You're going to end up facing each other. But the
difference between 3 and 4 is bigger than the difference between a 2 and a 3, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like they've played themselves into that 2-3 range, as long as they don't go one and done and have some other teams behind them pick up some good wins. But maybe just in terms of people looking for, all right, we don't want to pick all 1s and 2s. Let's look for some lower seeds to fill out in the bracket. Maybe, but I think ultimately it'll just come down to the matchups and kind of how people feel about the way Creighton's playing, whether they are a 2 or a 3.
Jacob, I was kind of going to what DB was talking about. I made this point earlier that the Creighton fans get a little bit, when it comes this time of year, especially before the last few years, Creighton fans would get real kind of hesitant when putting expectations on March, right? They would be like, oh, well, you got to be careful. It depends on the matchups. And I get they'd been burned before, but when you get into this range of, hey, you're a 2 or a 3 seed, you have to just be okay saying they need to make the second weekend, right? That should be the expectation. They're one of the top 10 teams in the country. That needs to be what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're shooting for when you're in this range, and that's the next step for them to continue to elevate where the program has been. Last year, they slipped down in terms of seeding from where the preseason expectations were, but then they still found a way to make that run. To get to the Elite Eight, and obviously came one play short of the Final Four there. So that's kind of where the program is now, especially with this group coming back. I think it is very reasonable. That's everyone on that team is feeling that's what we're here to do. And so I think it's okay if they don't make it. It's okay to feel disappointed as a fan. But I think the kind of distinction there is the Elite Eight or bust or whatever, where this is still a fantastic season and a step forward for the program, something to continue building on. That's just the final piece of it that people are going to remember. But I think that's where you kind of everything that happened at this point still mattered. Just kind of, that's how I view it. I don't view everything in terms of March determines what a season was, just because of it's one and done game, and some weird things happen in the tournament every single year. So I don't think an early loss would kind of unravel everything they've accomplished to this point and kind of make the future any less bright, but it would be disappointing for this group to go out that way for sure.
Jacob, we've talked, it's well documented. The Big Ten is kind of it's been a turnstile in the middle of the pack. You look at the way that this tournament sets up with the draws. Is there a team that kind of has your eye where you're like, I could kind of see them getting hot, making a run. They have it in them.
Let's see. Let's look at the bracket because I have not even done that yet.
I would. It would be so fitting if it was a team like Michigan State, who everybody's been hating on for the last month and a half.
I will continue to hate on them, and just because they make a run doesn't mean they should have been there.
But it seems like it could get a little chaotic, unless you think it's Iowa, maybe.
I don't think so for Iowa. Michigan, that would just be at the end of this bizarre season to knock out Purdue in their second. That would be wild. I think I wouldn't be.
They played.
I guess I'm expecting. I think Purdue or Illinois will probably one of the top seeds will probably win it. I just don't. It seems like those two have kind of separated themselves from the pack, and then you've got a lot of teams that are pretty similar after that. Mm-hmm. Like Northwestern with their injuries, with Ty Berry out, I just don't think they have enough firepower. Obviously, Wisconsin, the way they've been playing, that's not particularly encouraging. Nebraska, they got to get through Illinois. They took them to the wire, so I guess why not them? Because obviously the 3 seed, that's kind of like the next team there. So yeah, it's just kind of like you said, it's kind of a weird year for the Big Ten unless somebody gets on some kind of like crazy Penn State run where they just get crazy hot and start hitting a bunch of shots. I would expect one of the favorites to come out this year.
JP, before we get out of here, I want to. Sorry, I'm very distracted by the Trev stuff. Is there anything particularly? You said this is your first time going to New York, right?
Yes.
What is any besides the actual games? Like, is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to about the trip going to the Big East tournament, Madison Square Garden for the first time?
Just Madison Square Garden. Like I all my life of watching basketball, I've heard people talk about kind of how special the place is, the atmosphere, and even Mac just talked about how heck the crowds are crazy for the Wednesday play-in games and all that type of stuff. So I just kind of looking forward to seeing what that place looks like because I have not been to many visiting venues. Don't really do a ton of road coverage, so CHI, PBA, those are kind of the two arenas that I'm most familiar with outside of a couple tournament trips. And those are typically a little different anyway because of just kind of the NBA arena and kind of the traveling fan bases. So I think the Big East tournament will probably be a little different than anything I've experienced before. So I'm looking forward to that.
Jacob, even though you're pretty mean to me, I'm pretty excited that a basketball hoop's head.
I'm excited for you,
gets
JP.
to have some time in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, and hopefully Creighton makes a deep run so I can really kind of experience it. So
there you go. That's Jacob Padilla, our very own from Hurrdat Sports. Jacob, we'll talk to you again soon, and enjoy your time in New York.
All right, thanks, guys.
Coming up next, we've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here, Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. I'm Ravi, Lulla, that's DB. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and we'll catch up with the Omaha Supernovas tomorrow. They play tomorrow night at CHI Health Center. You can go to supernovas.com. I know I told you earlier in the show, but go to supernovas.com, buy some tickets for tomorrow. Also, if you want to call in right now, first person to call will get 4 tickets to the Omaha Supernovas. Just call Shane right now. Get him at 888-638-4876. That's 888-638-4876. Thank you. 888-638-4876. Call Shane right now to get tickets for tomorrow night's game, and go to supernovas.com to buy tickets as well. We will catch up with the Supernovas tomorrow, but as I mentioned during the interview with Jacob, it came down while we were talking to him. There are reports currently out from the Houston Chronicle, from Yahoo Sports, who are saying they've confirmed the source of the Houston Chronicle that Trev Alberts is being targeted, and at this point, the report is being expected to be named the AD at Texas A&M. It is not a done deal at this point. We have not gotten confirmation that the deal is done, but We can confirm, and now Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic, that this is something that's in the process right now. And it looks like we are fairly far down the road, although it is not completed. This is obviously pretty shocking. I don't know that, I think you said you knew he was in the mix, but didn't, I think some people knew he was in the mix, but I don't think anyone expected him to actually leave Nebraska.
Yeah, I'm completely that it's gotten this far. I think is extremely surprising to me.
So if he's not taking the job, let's play out that scenario. What could this be?
If he's not taking the job?
Yeah.
So if he's not going to Texas A&M, I don't know. I think his family situation is in play here. I don't think it's a monetary move. You just never know what's going on behind the scenes,
sure.
Right? So you've got Board of Regents, you've got a decision on an interim versus a president. You've got the dynamics of moving forward from a leadership position and transitioning your athletic department, where Texas A&M is. I think I could safely say this isn't about money.
Okay. And that's the first thing everybody thinks of with Texas A&M, right?
Because it's not. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe this to be a fiscal deal at all. Now, maybe it's I could see a situation in which it's, hey, it's good that you guys appreciate me here. Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the back channels of being an athletic director at Nebraska it's like any other big time job.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of people who can pick up the phone and call and have opinions, and
a lot of people that feel like they deserve an opinion because they've given X amount of money.
Yeah.
But
like that's a thing. So,
but that's not getting any better at Texas A&M.
No, I know that.
Right. Like it's probably worse.
Which would be which would lead me to believe anything that this has to do with could be family related.
So
maybe
the other thing that's out there that I think we have to at least bring up is he was a named defendant in the lawsuit regarding the women's basketball situation.
100%.
So, I mean, it doesn't seem like that would be the reason, because otherwise, I mean, we were talking off air, Amy Williams probably wouldn't still be coaching if that was the reason.
I believe that to be true.
If that was the reason that Trev was leaving here. I mean, I suppose it could be one of those, just he doesn't want to deal with it, but he doesn't stop being a defendant because he leaves Nebraska, right? Because he was still in leadership at the time.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make the situation go away. Leaving does not make the situation go away.
100%.
So I have a hard time believing it is directly related to that.
I don't believe that to be the case either.
I could be wrong, but just looking at it logically from what we know about the situation, about where Amy Williams is, about the fact that he would still be a defendant no matter if he retires or goes to Texas A&M or anything else. I don't know, like this doesn't fix a situation for him by leaving Nebraska. So I don't think that's the case. What we can't know at this point, you mentioned you never know what's going on behind the scenes. What we can't know at this point is what is the motivation for taking it this far down the line, right? Because I think that's what's as shocking to people as anything.
That's what's shocking to me.
Yeah.
Right. Not the courting, not.
Yeah, I understand why other people would want to hire Trev Alberts, right? Like that makes sense. I don't understand. Like there has to be a variable that we don't have, which is often the case, right? But there has to be a variable.
It'd have to be fairly substantial.
Yes.
Because you have to kind of remember just 2 weeks ago, the conversations that he and I were having about the position of the athletic department and what his fixation and design was for Nebraska and Coach Rule and Coach Hoiberg, and he said all of his coaches, right? Like I'm taking that at
his word
at face value, because this is not the kind of It's just not who he is to do something to the contrary without there being an extenuating circumstance.
And there are some people, especially in high level positions, that can compartmentalize those things. So maybe that's the case. I don't know. Maybe because a lot of times, if you're doing a good job at a high value position like athletic director, you're going to have people court you quite a bit, and you're able to separate, hey, this is the job I'm doing right now, while still listening to whatever's happening on this other side. I don't know Trev, so I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's his personality. It seems to think that you don't believe that, which is, you have better insight to it than I do. But I'm fairly stunned, to be honest, just with this isn't just an athletic director that feels like he, cares about Nebraska, whatever. This is an athletic director whose number is on the stadium at Nebraska. This is a pretty big deal. And I don't know, this isn't Nebraska is a Group of 5 school and Texas A&M comes calling, right? Like, they're positioned as in one of the two premier conferences, the conferences that are going to get all the things moving forward. He's already in one of those. Yeah, so there's no clear.
I'd like to. I think at this particular juncture, I'd like to be a fly on the wall with the Board of Regents, because that's really the only thing. And I'm not saying this is the catalyst, but if you ask me, like, what could take a guy over the top that loves his alma mater, that's pretty comfortable, that has built a good relationship, it would have to be something extreme with the power structure. And the power structure would be the Board of Regents. This isn't just something.
Now, there is an interim president.
I mentioned that.
Okay. Sorry. I
mentioned.
I apologize. I'm trying to keep up on Twitter at the same time.
I mentioned the interim president and the Board of Regents. Those are, and how that's playing out. Those are the only two things that I could see getting this far down the road.
Because Admiral Carter was a big part of Trev coming to Nebraska, right? I've got that right?
Yeah.
So
perhaps Coach Rule
and Coach Rule, yeah. And so perhaps his departure has opened this door for Trev. Maybe, there's always uncertainty when the people above you, there's shifting of those power dynamics. So maybe that's a factor. Is that a big enough factor? I would have expected at least, you wait it out and say, okay, who's going to be my new power structure? Be something,
because he has to understand, and he's really calculated.
Yeah.
The ramifications of this decision within the state. And if you're okay with that, then I can't knock it. You're right. You've got a ton of conviction.
Yeah, because he's gone through the calculus of, I probably can't come back here
ever
in a good light ever.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's, I'm looking at.
You have to be willing. You have to be willing to go through it.
You have to be willing to burn that house to the ground.
I'm telling you, man, I'm willing to be wrong and eat it. It's 9:40. I just can't see him going.
We've got Chris Dunker from the Lincoln Journal-Star has reached out to interim president Chris Kabarek. We will have that statement coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are going to reschedule our Supernovas chat for tomorrow. It is match day. Shane, did we give away those tickets?
We did. We had a winner by the name of Bob.
Bob won those tickets. We'll give away 4 more tomorrow. That'll be for Saturday, though. We really appreciate the Supernovas being flexible with us as we had some breaking news here. I do want to.
Bob was pretty excited, by the way.
Good
He loves the show. He can't wait. He's a big fan.
It's gonna be fun. I'm shooting for $12K tomorrow night at CHI Health Center for our friends of Supernovas. Make sure you go to supernovas.com to get tickets. Also, want to remind you, teamjackfoundation.org. They are obviously super tied in with the University of Nebraska, which we're going to keep talking about, Trev, here in just a second. But I got to tell you that the work they're doing is important and needs to be talked about real quick, with over $12 million raised to date and counting. All they're trying to do, and it's a simple message, but simple's not easy. We know that. Finding better treatment for kids fighting brain cancer, and one day a cure. Make sure you go to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved. Either donate directly there or find events that you can get involved in. That's teamjackfoundation.org. The thing that's dominating the last half hour of the show here is the report from Yahoo Sports, Houston Chronicle, The Athletic now as well, that Texas A&M is zeroing in on Trev Alberts as the next AD at Texas A&M. However, there is a Chris Dunker from the Lincoln Journal-Star reached out to, and I don't know if I'm saying his name right, and I apologize because I've never said the interim president of Nebraska's name before, Chris Kabaruk. He's reached out to him. He is technically Trev's boss right now, and he says, Trev has not told me that he has accepted the A&M position. So as of right now, this is just 11th hour business. That's where we're at.
I'm just telling you.
Okay. You're putting it out there right now.
I am. I said it before the break.
Mm-hmm.
But before we start any of the slander and speculations about who Trev is or isn't, I would hold on.
Because you don't think he's gone?
My gut says no.
Okay.
I'm on record.
I appreciate you going.
You can say, DB, my gut says Trev Alberts is not going to Texas A&M. And I'm willing to be wrong.
He's got a lot invested here.
So all the things that I've known for, as he said just 2 weeks ago to me, over half my life. Over half my life. Right? And we're talking about a guy that went out of his way to make a stop at a high school for an event to be a part of, get some signatures for something that was important to him. And we talked extensively about the job and what it means to him.
This is when you had the Moat conversation, right?
Yeah, this is the Moat conversation. Yeah. I don't listen. I know I'm supposed to. My MO is to be the calm guy in the choppy waters. And if I felt like I was going to lose my bearings and couldn't be a voice of reason, I would get off the air.
Right.
Yeah. My heart of hearts says there's nothing about how this whole thing is shaken out
that makes sense.
That makes any sense. That is indicative of who.
That's in line with what you know about Trev.
Who Trev is,
right?
I'll say that out loud. I don't have any problems.
Number
one, he would talk to his interim president. Number two, he would talk to his executive staff. I don't believe that any of that's happened. Now, it
may still happen, but you don't think we're there yet?
No. And I just don't think I just don't think that's a situation he wants to walk into if he doesn't have to, because it's not money.
If it's not about the money, which you don't think it is, which is fair,
nah,
then I don't know what
he wouldn't go through the headache.
I
mean, A&M is a tough team.
Yeah, I would say I don't know what A&M offers. If it's not money, I don't know what A&M offers that Nebraska doesn't. Right? Because that is a difficult athletic department situation, because they think they're Alabama. They think they should be Alabama. They spend like Alabama. They're not Alabama, right? Results wise, that's not who they've been, but that's who they expect to be. That's a really difficult position to be in anywhere in that athletic department. And so unless it is for the money, that's a really hard sell for most people, right?
Yeah.
And so, I agree with you. I don't know Trev. It would be odd to me if it was a money grab, right? And that's what
it's not.
And that's what it would see.
Listen to what I'm telling you. It's not.
And I believe you. I do. But that's the only thing that Texas A&M has to offer, I think. So if it's not that, then it makes sense for you to say, I don't think he's going.
No.
Right? Because you've known Trev, what, 30 years? You guys crossed over a little bit, right?
32.
Yeah.
33.
So you've known him since you were a kid, basically.
And it wasn't just like, I don't know, man. He asked me to be on his committee at Omaha.
Yeah.
Right? For Marlon Briscoe.
So like there's a real relationship there.
Real relationship.
This isn't just fly by night.
When he had
tangentially,
when he had some athletes that he wanted to do internships, he was like, "Hey, I really like Hurrdat. I like what you guys are doing." He picked up the phone and called. I said, "Hey, my boss, can I give her your
contact
information?" Yeah. Hey, DB, I trust you. Please do. I said, "Okay, I'm going to weave you in on a group." Like little stuff like that.
There's a real relationship.
Yeah,
there.
I'm not pulling this out of my rear end. And like I said, I'm willing to be wrong. And there would be a lot of explaining to do. I just feel like I know how he
more
works
about him
better than most.
You know more about him than certainly anyone else that's on the air.
Locally, yeah, for sure.
And
100%.
Probably more than most just universally. Yeah. Like there's not a lot of people.
It just doesn't like now again, what I don't know is anything that may have really is anything that may have happened
within the last couple of weeks with family wise.
It wouldn't even be the last couple of weeks. It would be like the last week.
Yeah.
Wow, that is really unknowing. Like, can we turn that off? Like,
yeah.
What are we doing?
I don't know what we're doing here. Got some nice soundtrack music for the end of our Trev conversation.
And the other thing is with that, I can barely focus. Thank you. I just don't. Number one, he wouldn't at this stage of his career, he wouldn't invite any unnecessary headaches.
Yeah, which this would be a lot.
Short of gun to head, he would be inheriting a ton of variables that are out of his control. It's just not how he operates.
Guys that he didn't pick, guys that he didn't hire, guys that he doesn't know.
And furthermore, you'd have to go back and explain to your staff. Just think about all the staff meetings and the meetings that he's had with Coach Rule.
Also, you have to go explain to Coach Rule.
Right?
Right?
Because the two key people and reasons why he was here other than his wife.
Trev Alberts.
Yep.
Admiral Carter.
Right.
Yeah. Admiral Carter left.
I just can't see him doing that to Nebraska.
Which I know people were upset about and were a little surprised by. But the difference between that and this is Trev is Nebraska through and through.
And I'm telling you, man, he would talk to his executive staff first.
You would think so. I mean,
because there's no these are long-lasting relationships.
And theoretically, people that he would ask at least some of them to go with him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these are people he trusts, people he works with well. You know, when you think about taking a new job and you're in a position where you can bring people with you, usually you start to feel out those conversations.
Yeah. I'm just telling you, like, I'm gonna stand on business here. I just think I can't. And this isn't, I can separate my emotions and the personal relationship to keep it 100 and
to have a logical conclusion.
I can be logical and I'm processing through this obviously real time.
Yeah, which is difficult.
So I'm just telling you, like, to sit across the table from that executive staff, to go to Lindsay or Doug or anybody on that executive team and say, hey, I know I haven't said anything, but I'm gone. Like, it goes against everything that he's ever stood for. And I don't think he wants to have to go back and clean that up.
Well,
because even if you're
for sure,
because even if you're upset with him for what happened at Omaha, right? He's eaten some of that.
Yeah.
Right. So if that's the one thing that you're holding against him, believe me, like it still eats at him a little. And I think that's younger Trev. This is a little older, more experienced Trev. I can't see him inviting that kind of headache.
Well, and we mentioned this earlier, but the other part of this is, his legacy at Nebraska, and that seems like something that matters to him.
Yeah.
Getting Nebraska back to where he believes they should be seems like something that's important to him.
It just
A, he hasn't finished that job, and B, we said this earlier, he would never be able to come back here.
Listen, Aaron, stop overreacting. Nothing has happened yet. Stop overreacting.
I think part of the issue we're seeing here is the initial report was targeted.
Yeah, I mean,
and that they're moving towards, they're working on it.
Do you think he really wants to give the university back $4.2 million?
I would guess no. If I had $4.2 million, I would not want to give it back.
But that's what he would owe.
Yeah, and I'm sure Texas A&M would make it worth his while.
I just can't see. It's just too messy.
It is. It's very messy. It's incredibly messy. I will say, I want to make sure people are clarified here, because the original report from Brent Zwinnerman from the Houston Chronicle is that Trev Alberts is being targeted and he expects the deal to get done.
Yeah.
Other people are saying Trev Alberts to Texas A&M is done. That at this point at 9:55 a.m. Central Time is not the case. Targeted, yes. Moving towards an agreement, maybe. He has not left. He has not told interim president, his current boss, that he's leaving. At this point, that's where we're at. If there's anything more, we will keep you updated. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. This is Hurrdat Sports Radio.